story from the GB newsroom. Cyber-security firm CrowdStrike says it's working to fix a defect in an update for users of Microsoft Windows software, which has sparked a global IT outage. Flights at many of the world's airports have been grounded since early this morning, with airlines unable to complete check-ins. Banks, supermarkets, GP clinics and even major TV and radio broadcasters are among the many who've been knocked offline. Those travelling by rail are also affected, with TransPennine Express, Thameslink and Southern among the many who've reported disruption. CrowdStrike CEO says the issue is not related to a security incident or cyber attack, but Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says it shows the vulnerabilities of the digital age.
This incident shows us just how dependent we are on IT systems, and when something like this happens, how fast and how widespread the effects are. The reassuring thing in this case is that it's not a hostile act, it's not a security attack. The cause has been identified, and it's really important, because we're so reliant on these systems, that the fix is put in place as soon as possible.
Journalist Evan Gershkovich has been sentenced to 16 years behind bars after a Russian court found him guilty of espionage. The Wall Street Journal reporter has already been held at a Moscow prison for 16 months on charges of spying. Prosecutors say the 32-year-old was caught gathering secret information for the CIA, though no information to back up the allegations has been made public. Responding to news of the sentence moments ago, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says journalism isn't a crime and called for his immediate release. One person has drowned after an overcrowded migrant boat began sinking in the English Channel overnight. The woman, believed to be from Sudan, died, and 86 people have been rescued by a French patrol vessel. But those on board initially refused help. An hour later, the boat deflated, throwing many into the water. Rescue teams attempted to resuscitate the woman, but she died at the scene. She is the 6th migrant to drown in the Channel in just a week. Donald Trump says he'll bring back the American dream if he returns to the White House, and he took to the stage for the first time since the assassination attempt. Speaking at the Republican National Convention, the former president formally accepted the nomination to be the party's candidate in November's election. He also told supporters about last weekend's assassination attempt, saying he saw blood everywhere when he was shot at during the rally. Former wrestler Hulk Hogan, who also made a speech, called Mr. Trump a hero.
All you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you, brother?
Meanwhile, Barack Obama has reportedly told senior Democrats that he's concerned over Joe Biden's ability to win November's election. The former president is understood to have told colleagues that Mr. Biden's path to victory was greatly diminished. It comes as a report in the New York Times suggests President Biden has begun to accept that he may have to drop out of the race, though at least one person close to Mr. Biden insists he's not yet made up his mind. A widespread police cordon is in place in a Leeds suburb after violence erupted in Hares Hill. Vehicles were set ablaze and a police car overturned late last night, with residents warned to stay indoors as helicopters and a large police presence responded to the chaos. It's understood the riots were linked to local children being taken into care. West Yorkshire Mayor Tracy Brabbins condemned what she's described as the violent and thoughtless actions, promising a thorough investigation. Health alerts are in place across the country as the summer sun brings welcome relief for some. Experts are urging people to take precautions, with warnings in place in many parts of England until 11 o'clock tomorrow night. Today is now officially the hottest day of the year after temperatures hit 31.2 in Heathrow this afternoon. But England is far from the hottest part of Europe today, with temperatures in Madrid and Seville peaking at around 40 degrees. And if you've ever thought of managing the England squad, this could be your moment. The Football Association has posted an official job advert on its website for the role of head coach. The job description says the search is on for someone who will lead the men's team to win a major tournament and be consistently ranked as one of the top teams in the world. You'll have to get your application in quick, though. The Post says a number of candidates have already been identified to replace Gareth Southgate, but the FA is committed to an open process. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Now let's get stuck into a cracking show. Now, the country's national emergency response is being fired up to tackle the global IT outage. So far, it's impacted airlines, banks, businesses and institutions. NHS England is also warning patients the tech meltdown is causing disruption in the majority of GP practices. Cabinet Minister Pat McFadden says this entire episode shows our vulnerability to digital technology.
What this incident shows is just how dependent we are on IT systems, and when something like this happens, how fast and how widespread the effects are. The reassuring thing in this case is that it's not a hostile act, it's not a security attack. The cause has been identified, and it's really important, because we're so reliant on these systems, that the fix is put in place as soon as possible.
Well, what a pickle. Let's get now the latest from GB News national reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, welcome to the show. So the Millennium Bug came 24 and a half years too late. Flights grounded, doctor's appointments thrown to chaos. We can't even pay for our groceries at some supermarkets. What happened? Is it over? And will it happen again?
Well, what happened? Well, overnight, CrowdStrike, which provides cybersecurity support to cloud technology cybersecurity services, updated its clients with a 41 kilobyte software update, a tiny run of code. But unfortunately, that code contained a small bug, which bricked millions of systems and caused this widespread outage, which has affected airports, hospitals, even police forces around the world, with many of them facing what is known as the blue screen of death, where you have a blue screen on your system, but you can't access it and it does not respond to any input. Now, in the last 5 minutes, you've had a statement from Ryanair, which that they are asking all customers to leave any airports where they are waiting for delayed or cancelled flights, as we're showing some pictures now of airports across the UK where people have been waiting several hours with little information. At one airport in Dublin, they showed information on a whiteboard for upcoming flights. But it's that 41 kilobyte software update that caused this crisis. The CEO of CrowdStrike said on air this morning that he was deeply sorry for the disruption. It's affected primarily Microsoft users. The Windows operating system has been affected. Mac and Linux not impacted by that code. Microsoft said that a third-party failure had caused this issue. It said that it had found a solution to its own issues. CrowdStrike later also said that they deployed a fix to target the problem that arrived overnight. But it's unclear how long that's going to take. How long is that fix going to be running before all of those customers are back up and running? Well, CrowdStrike say that they are working with all of their customers to get them back online. Some are enjoying an automatic return to the services, but many more are requiring that manual reboot. We saw this morning some engineers, some computer engineers saying that they were directly rebooting their systems, even with this deployed fix being used by CrowdStrike. And what's the human impact of that? Well, we've already mentioned those airports. We've seen some footage just now of queues outside Edinburgh Airport, but also this is affecting people waiting to see their GP. The majority of NHS England GPs affected by this situation. But in many ways, Britain's been quite lucky, because while there's been delays to access to see doctors around the world, we've had operations cancelled in Germany and 911 systems, the emergency line in Alaska, going down. This has caused a major global worldwide outage.
Astonishing stuff and an excellent summary. As ever, Charlie Peters, thank you very much for joining us on the show. And to move this conversation on, I can now speak with cybersecurity advisor Megha Kumar, who works for cybersecurity consulting business CyXL. Welcome to the show. It seems astonishing that this kind of thing could happen of our own volition. It feels like a cyber attack. This is the kind of thing we were promised all those years ago with the Millennium Bug, Y2K. How on earth can something this major happen?
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, indeed, this is a very serious issue. I think this kind of a crisis was actually a long time coming, and that's for two reasons. One, because there is excessive competition in the cybersecurity market, but that has still not prevented the concentration of the market among a very small select group of IT companies. So CrowdStrike is a market leader in anti-software services across the world, and Microsoft, together with Google and AWS, really dominates the cloud space. So what you have in a context like this is that there is a single point of failure right at the top of the supply chain, and everything goes down. It is, if I had to give you a simple analogy, it would be saying that if your heart pacemaker is malfunctioning or disrupted or out of commission for any reason, it really doesn't matter what the rest of the body is going to do.
That's an astonishing similarity there. The problem with that, of course, is that the beating heart of the world now is technology, and it really makes you realise, Megha, that we're just so dependent on it for everything, for shopping, for medicine, for travelling, for the everyday life. Do you think that the reputation of CrowdStrike now is utterly obliterated?
I think the reputational damage of this incident is going to be serious for both CrowdStrike and Microsoft, and that cost is already already reflected in the hit they've taken on their share price. But I think the longer-term cost might be more serious still. A lot of intermediaries, for example, insurers, encourage companies, small and large, to go with these providers because they are market leaders. They have a strong reputation up until now in this space. And if these intermediaries raise questions about the reliability of the services provided by these market leaders, then the impact is going to be much more serious. And the other thing that could that's worth watching and that could affect these companies is whether there has been data loss. Under GDPR of the EU and the UK, data breaches can be about the confidentiality of data, its integrity, or its availability. And as your colleague just mentioned, a lot of primary healthcare facilities across the NHS have reported not being able to access patient data. So data availability can also be a breach under GDPR, and that in turn, has both reporting and regulatory obligations. So these companies have a serious problem ahead.
And Megha, down to the personal level, my son was on his first school trip today. He was actually on the aircraft at Heathrow, due to fly to Berlin, sat there for 1 hour. They had to get off the entire airport. We can see pictures on our screen now, entire airport in total lockdown, nobody able to get anywhere. In terms of the knock-on impact of that, presumably people will be able to claim all their travel insurance. Will the insurers be going after CrowdStrike? I mean, millions, if not billions of pounds worth of damage has been done to the British economy alone. Does the buck stop with CrowdStrike?
I think who the buck will ultimately stop with will be a matter for the regulators to decide. So far, we don't have any reports that the confidentiality of the data has been breached. So they're so far safe on that. We don't know whether the integrity of the data have been compromised, by which I mean that systems that became inoperational may still have been left open, which creates a possibility of hackers to access that data. And I've already mentioned the data availability issue. So once these issues are taken into consideration by the data regulatory watchdogs, then there is going to be an evaluation on breach and whether the liability will sit with one of the two companies involved or it'll be distributed.
And do you think people overseas, hostile agents, hostile powers, we often talk about the Chinese, the Russians, they must be looking at this and think that this is beyond our wildest dreams. You know, what they've achieved against us so far has been a tea party compared to this. But will they be looking on, Magar, and thinking, right, here's the Achilles heel, here are the weak points, and will this self-inflicted damage, if you like, by a data company allow those who would wish to cause us damage from overseas to see the way of getting the Trojan horse in and causing us harm?
I think that is a fair concern in that criminal hackers and state-linked hackers, in recent years have really gone after the supply chain of IT companies. Such hackers, if they want to get access to sensitive data, they've figured out that no point trying to breach 150 companies. Just go after the one supplier that serves these 150 companies and you'll get access to a much richer trove of data. I think, cybersecurity can never be 100% foolproof, but defensive strategies are nonetheless extremely important. So far, technological adoption has been driven by, a desire for efficiency, automation, cutting costs, but not enough people have paid attention to the resilience of these technologies when they do fail, when they do get disrupted, or when they become a problem in and of themselves. So we need companies to think a lot more seriously about legal resilience, so they're on the right side of law and regulations, of operational resilience, so that, like the companies you mentioned, travel insurers or airlines, have the capacity and the people and the skills to, have a contingency plan in place if there is a crisis of some kind. And also security resilience. I mean, this goes back to the question you asked. Bad actors use the same tech, the same systems, the same tools we have available. And the barriers to misusing this technology is falling constantly. So you need robust cybersecurity resilience. In short, it's not good enough to just have great tech and use it well. It is equally important that you have a peacetime, non-crisis time, disaster recovery plan in place so that you can avoid the kind of damages that the economy has seen and different sectors have seen, and so that you can also avoid such a disruption to then become a window for criminal actors.
Excellent summary. Thanks for keeping it simple and easy to understand. It's much benefited myself. That's Megha Kumar, who works for the cybersecurity consulting business CyXL. Does it make you wonder how dependent we are on technology? We're phasing out cash, we've phased out our landlines, we're phasing out paperwork at our GP surgeries, and today highlights just how dependent we are on tech. Did we have it better in the good old days? Get into it the usual ways. Now, lots more on that story throughout the show, of course, and there's plenty of coverage on our website, gbnews.com, and you've helped to make it the fastest growing national news website in the country. Now, still plenty of time to grab your chance to win £30,000 in the Great British Giveaway. It's our biggest cash prize of the year. And what's more, it's totally tax-free. What would you do with all that extra dough? Well, here's how you could win the lot.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, we'll head to Leeds to get the latest after those shocking scenes from the disorder last night where a police vehicle was overturned and a bus was torched, as you can see on your screen. I'll be asking, where on earth were the police? Because I'll tell you what, if that was a football crowd, they'd have been steaming in. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Meghan Markle has reportedly finished filming her new show for Netflix. It aims to celebrate the joys of cooking, gardening, entertaining and friendship.
Yeah, this comes after Prince Harry's Netflix documentary, The Heart of Invictus, failed to hit the right note with viewers, missing out on the top 10 in the streaming charts.
So, will this next venture be a success? Well, joining us now is royal commentator Kinsey Schofield.
I know I've talked to the both of you about Meghan Markle potentially running for president, so this feels like a bit of a dud to go from Meghan Markle running for president to Meghan Markle's Netflix series about friendship and cooking. So she's wrapped this recent show. They rented a home near hers in Montecito so that as their cooking set. And they're saying that this is really make or break for Harry and Meghan when it comes to their Netflix contract.
You think, Kinsey, it's fair to say that Meghan Markle has proved to be commercially a bit of a damp squib? Even in America, her native homeland, she's kind of Oprah without the audience when it comes to the cooking. Also, is she kind of, do you think... They saw her as the golden ticket, didn't they, to unlimited revenue, unlimited audiences, and it just hasn't happened.
Look, I think Meghan is a beautiful woman, and I do think she's talented, but I think how you treat people is incredibly important. And not only was she rumored to have been cruel inside Kensington Palace with several bullying allegations, but here in the States, Archwell Productions, their audio section, their scripted section, they've gone through several employees. And I think it's a reflection on the way that people are treated there. And I think as a viewer, you might get that. You might feel that way. And maybe that is where the appeal has been lost.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 3:25. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, a little later on, we'll head to the seaside as the UK is experiencing its hottest day of the year, with temperatures maxing out at 31.2 degrees centigrade in West London. We'll be heading to Skeggy, where I grew up on the coast. Just how are us Brits coping with this short-lived heatwave? Moving on, several people have been arrested after a night of violence in Leeds. Police cars were overturned and public transport was set on fire, with residents were warned to stay at home in the suburb of Hare Hills. And joining us from the scene now is our reporter, Anna Riley. Anna, welcome to the show. Astonishing scenes last night, looking everything like civil meltdown. Anna Riley, are you with us? Anna, welcome to the show. So astonishing scenes last night, looking like it's civil war in process. It looks like very much now we have the clean-up of the night before. Here's Anna Riley stepping in. Anna, they're clearing the scene there now. The bus behind you has been cleared away. Tell us, what's the mood like on the ground after a night of anarchy?
Yes, Martin, I'll just step out of frame so you can see. As you can see behind me, a lot of clean-up efforts going on. There's been a JCB that's removed most of this burnt-out bus that was torched last night in this riot that involved up to 1,000 people. You can actually see, I don't know if our cameraman can show us, but it's actually destroyed the tarmac and the road below. So council workers now are digging away what remains of the tarmac, and the remains of the burnt out bus is also to be taken away. We know that so far several arrests have been made by police. They've issued another statement today in which they've said they will leave no stone unturned, and they expect to make more arrests. This comes after an incident that broke out at 5 o'clock yesterday in the Hare Hills area where we are now, in which social services were called out to remove a number of children from a home. Police were then contacted by social services when they were met with aggression, but then the police were then targeted when they intervened, and that ended in a large-scale riot. We can see pictures across social media that were shared throughout the night. It went on for a number of hours, up to 8 hours, people setting light to the bus behind us. They were also overturning a police car, using rocks and scooters and other missiles at a police car to break through the windows, and the police said that they felt that they were a target and that they had to temporarily retreat when those missiles were thrown at them. But it just escalated throughout the evening, and of course this has been condemned widely, the action of these rioters, including by the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, who said that she'd do everything in her power to give the police support in this ongoing incident. It's also been condemned by the Mayor of West Yorkshire, Tracy Brabin, and police say their investigations are continuing, with a lot of that material being shared online. They're searching also for CCTV to find those culpable. We've also been out speaking to residents and business owners here this morning in the aftermath of what went on, and I spoke to Robert. He was a resident who was out to buy some milk, and this is what he told us he saw.
There were just loads of people. I just followed the thing, saw the police coming up, and they were just, a van was pulled up. They dragged the guy out. I don't know if he got out himself, but they opened his van, threw fridges, cardboard, anything they could find, people, wheelie bins, do you know what I mean? And they were just full, you know what I mean, just throwing stuff, cheering, do you know what I mean? It was just mayhem, just mayhem. Saw the bus, I'm throwing stuff at the bus, but I went up the road to go and get my milk. Sorry. Yeah, so as I'm walking down, I see a plume of smoke from this direction, really dark smoke, and people saying the bus is on fire.
Robert there sharing his experiences of what happened last night going on into the midnight hours. And also we've been speaking to other residents as well. We spoke to one business owner earlier. He said when he saw what had emerged on social media of what was happening here, he feared for his business, as we heard Robert describing there. One business being targeted, a van with people pulling fridges off. He was worried about his business. I also spoke to another man who lives in Hare Hills still. He grew up here, and he told me that he feels this area is a no-go zone now. He said that he fears for his safety and for the safety of his family, but we can still see here obviously this ongoing clean-up effort. There is still a large police presence. Police have been out reassuring locals, speaking to locals, and as we have more information on this, we will bring it to you, Martin.
Okay, Anna Riley, thank you very much for that update on the scene there. There's a huge amount of questions need to be asked about this. Astonishing scenes of a multicultural area, seemingly the factions within that community at odds with each other. The police have issued, to my knowledge, no condemnatory statement yet. They'd have been straight in if this, for example, was a protest outside a migrant centre in Dublin or in Liverpool. They'd be called far right. They'd be called extremists. If those protesters were white working-class football fans, they'd have been straight in with the batons. There were scenes last night of the police running away from this incident. What does that say to these trouble causers? Nigel Farage waded in saying the politics of the subcontinent are currently playing out on the streets of Leeds. Don't say I didn't warn you. That led a Labour MP, Alex Sobel, to say this is a situation you know nothing about. You're inflaming a situation with misinformation. Throughout the rest of this show, I'll be talking to top coppers to ask them, is this two-tier policing? What can we do about it? I'll speak to Dame Andrea Jenkins, until recently an MP in the Leeds area, for her insight. Was this a powder keg waiting to happen? Is this a glimpse into a broken Britain? Can we expect to see more of this in the future? And as we radically change the way we police our fractured communities. There's lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock. We'll be bringing you all the latest as channel crossings continue. And we can expect many, many more as the warm weather continues into the foreseeable future. In fact, we've got some exclusive footage coming right your way of boats still rolling in to Dover as we speak. But first, it's time for your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines from the GB newsroom at 3:30. As a global IT outage continues, cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike say they're actively working to fix a defect in Microsoft Windows. Flights at many of the world's airports have been grounded since early this morning, with airlines unable to complete check-ins. Thousands of GP practices across England have also been affected, as well as banks, trains and broadcasters. The government's held an emergency COBRA meeting to discuss the problem. CrowdStrike CEO says the issue has been identified and it's not a security incident or a cyber attack. A woman believed to be from Sudan drowned after an overcrowded migrant boat got into trouble in the English Channel overnight. 86 others were rescued by a French patrol vessel at around 1 o'clock this morning. They were all taken to Calais. The American journalist Evan Gershkovich has been sentenced to 16 years in jail after a Russian court found him guilty of espionage. Prosecutors say the 32-year-old was caught gathering secret information for the CIA, though no information to back up the allegations has been made public. President Biden says he's committed to bringing Evan home. Donald Trump pledged to bring back the American dream as he took to the stage last night to formally accept the Republican nomination for president. Speaking for the first time since he narrowly avoided an assassination attempt, the former president at first struck a unifying tone, promising to lead for all Americans. But he soon ventured off his prepared script, accusing his political opponent of cheating in what was the longest presidential acceptance speech since records began. Meanwhile, Barack Obama has reportedly told senior Democrats that Joe Biden's path to victory has greatly diminished. It comes as a report in the New York Times suggests President Biden has begun to accept that he may have to drop out of the race, though at least one person close to Mr. Biden insists he's not yet made up his mind. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2923 and €1.1871 euros. The price of gold is £1,858 and 18 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,161 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, if you want to get in touch with us here at GB News, simply go to gbnews.com/your say. I'll read out best of your messages a little later in the show. Plus, we'll have some astonishing footage of the boats pouring into Dover. Another record-breaking day, taking the tally to almost 2,000 illegal immigrants arriving on our shores since Sir Keir Starmer promised to smash the gangs. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Through the rest of today, we'll be feeling very hot into this evening as well, and very mild night to come for much of England and Wales. There is a change on the way as we head towards the weekend. Weather fronts will push in from the west, introducing considerably fresher air, but also a spell of wet weather. And that cloud and rain will push into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should stay dry. A bit of cloud spilling into western Wales, parts of the southwest as well. But across the south and east, a clear night to come. And here is where it will stay mild and humid overnight. Temperatures perhaps not dipping down much below 20 degrees. However, from the north and west, as I said, it will turn fresher through Saturday once this weather front clears through. That will clear through the Western Isles very first thing, but still some heavy rain to come across parts of the Highlands. Eastern areas of Scotland not seeing the rain till a little later on in the day on Saturday. Wet weather, though, spilling into Northern Ireland as well as North Wales through Saturday morning. Could see some quite heavy downpours pushing into parts of South Wales as well as Devon and Cornwall through Saturday morning as well. Further east, though, it will be a clear and bright start to the day on Saturday, but it will be feeling fairly humid through the day. The sunshine will turn hazier as well for many central and eastern areas of the UK as this cloud starts to thicken ahead of the band of heavy rain. So heavy pulses of rain to come for parts of Wales, the southwest, as well as some areas of Scotland as well. Temperatures cooler tomorrow compared to today, but still across the south and east, we could still reach the high 20s. Through Saturday evening, that rain will continue its journey eastwards, so some further outbreaks of heavy rain at risk for many areas of the UK, but it will turn cooler and much drier as we head into Sunday. So sunny spells on Sunday for many of us, temperatures much closer to average, but further wet weather to come next week.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Jules Buckley. Eastbound M62 still slow going towards Huddersfield at 23. Not up by an earlier collision, all lanes open. North of Bristol, the M4 solid both ways between the M5 and the M32. Be coming off eastbound, the exit slip towards the M32 at 19's part blocked. There's been a multi-vehicle collision. Queues north of the M1, Redbourne at 9 to Luton North at junction 11A. Not up by an earlier breakdown there. Westbound M20 in Kent around the Route and Brands Hatch Circuit junction 2, a lane shut. Queues at the scene of a collision. The earlier bump at the northbound M3 is clear. There was still queuing from the M2714 up towards Eastleigh at 12 in patches. And if you're catching a flight in and out of the UK, of course, disruption to UK airports, that's all due to a systems error, certainly worth checking before you travel on the airways. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes, she could have saved Storm. You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere. Something practical could be done. Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 3:39. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, another small boat migrant has died in the Channel overnight as hundreds more make the crossing today. GB News believes the victim was a Sudanese woman drowned after the massively overcrowded boat she was in began sinking in French waters just before 1 a.m. A Number 10 spokeswoman has said it is a tragedy that yet another life has been lost, and the Prime Minister spoke to such an incident just yesterday. We're joined now in the studio by GB News' political correspondent Olivia Utley. Olivia, welcome to the studio. Yesterday at Blenheim Palace, Sir Keir Starmer was adamant a new deal would be done with European partners. Smash the gangs, very much the central message. Olivia, the gangs haven't been listening. Almost 500 landed today, taking the tally to almost 2,000 since Sir Keir Starmer was elected Prime Minister just 2 weeks ago. Like Rishi Sunak before him, can Sir Keir Starmer ever stop the boat?
Well, this is a really, really tricky issue for any Prime Minister, but perhaps particularly this Labour Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak obviously did not have great success with stopping the boats. He introduced the Immigration Migration Act last year, which would have paved the way for the Rwanda plan to come into effect, but that plan never actually came into effect. There were all sorts of legal obstacles. After all, the parliamentary obstacles were overcome and nothing ever came of it. During the campaign trail, Keir Starmer said that if he was to be made Prime Minister, then the Rwanda scheme would be history. And sure enough, on pretty much day one, he announced that he would not be fulfilling the Rwanda plan. So what is going to replace it? Well, that's sort of the million-dollar question. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, said during the campaign trail that she would employ an extra 1,000 caseworkers in the Home Office who would end the sort of bottleneck of migrants coming through the system by getting through the paperwork quicker. Not sure if pen pushers are really going to be enough to manage to stop the boats. The other issue for Labour is that the Labour Party has always maintained that anyone who has a right to come here, anyone who would legally be entitled to asylum in the UK should be granted asylum in the UK, even if they come here illegally. Well, about 2/3 of migrants who come across the Channel are from countries with very high levels of asylum acceptance rates if they come in through legal routes. So would it actually be possible for Keir Starmer to turn many of these people away? If he is saying that anyone should be accepted for asylum, even if they come here illegally, well, you could argue that is sort of an open invitation for anyone to come to Britain. As for smashing the gangs, I mean, that is obviously something that the Conservative government before this was very keen to do too. And Rishi Sunak made all sorts of very expensive deals with the French, which were basically aimed at trying to break up those gangs, to stop the stream up source. It's not as easy as it sounds, and I think this is going to be a really big problem for Keir Starmer going forwards, particularly as there are plenty in his party who actually don't really think that the small boats problem is a problem at all. They think that if someone lives in a dangerous country, then they should be welcomed into Britain with open arms.
It makes you wonder if some of those Labour MPs actually want to stop the boats, all of which, if we look on our screens now, we have some exclusive footage that's been sent to us at GB News. This is boats rolling in all morning. Some of these boats having well over 100 occupants. I've just been told more than 400 landed today. The boats still coming in. And Olivia, we have conditions in the Channel now more or less like a mill pond for the days ahead. And yet Sir Keir Starmer's solutions are going to take time. More policy exchange, more data exchange with Europol. Well, that won't happen overnight. £84 million paid to Africa and the Middle East on education initiatives to somehow entice or encourage people to stay in those countries. But that won't have any effect on all of those thousands and thousands of illegal immigrants we've revealed on the show 2 days ago. 1.25 million illegal immigrants entered the 27 European member states last year alone, inexorably. They'll be making their way across the EU now. So initiatives in Africa won't have a single piece of impact on any of that. Isn't that the problem? All of this sounds great on paper, but it's all going to take too long.
It is going to take a really long time. And obviously, politically, this is all completely fraught for the new Prime Minister. He's essentially fighting a battle on two very different fronts. There are now plenty of Labour MPs who represent constituencies that are on the front line of the immigration problem, of constituencies where people are just arriving in small boats day after day. Those people desperately want the small boat crossings to end. Meanwhile, on the Bibi Stockholm, you have a situation where migrants are going on hunger strike because of the conditions that they're being kept in. And there are plenty of Labour Party members, activists, Labour Party voters who think that these migrants should be held in better conditions and actually that the Bibi Stockholm shouldn't be used at all. At the moment, the Labour government is saying, well, we've inherited a situation which is so bad, I'm afraid we can't see any option but to continue the use of these temporary facilities on places like the Bibi Stockholm. But it's clear that line isn't going to last forever. At some point, the Labour Party is going to have to come up with a solution for this. So at the same time as trying to stop the thousands of migrants hundreds of migrants who are coming in every day, thousands who are coming in every week, the Labour Party is also dealing with the issue of living conditions for the ones who are already here.
And Olivia Utley, it gives me no satisfaction to say it once again, but the Bibi Stockholm is the only boat they ever managed to really stop. Olivia Utley, thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Now, coming up, we'll be heading to sunny Skegness, where I spent many a day as a child as the UK experiences its hottest day of the year. Just how are us weather-obsessed Brits dealing with this mini heatwave? I hope via the mediums of ice cream and beer. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
No one wants their child to be a fussy eater. But what is the secret to expanding your child's culinary horizons?
Is there a way to get kids away from the kids' menu, the fish fingers, the chips? Joining us now is the UK's top-selling author of children's cookery books, Annabelle Carmel. Good morning, Annabelle.
Thank you. So lovely to be here.
So, first of all, what's the issue with kids just having the traditional easy meals like fish fingers, you know, chips, beans?
It really depends if they've got preservatives in them, if they're full of salt. So I like to make them myself, and it's really easy. So I make my own chicken glazed nuggets, and super easy to make using proper pieces of chicken. You can cook them in the air fryer now, which is absolutely brilliant, so you need to fry them. And I think that it's really important that children grow up loving good food, because they make their minds up by the age of 5 what they like and what they don't like, and it's quite difficult to change their minds after that. But it's good to know that fussy eating is genetic. It's not to do with your cooking.
Oh,
that's not to say that you can't do something about it. So I've written many, many books, and I have an app with 1,000 recipes on it, and a lot of how to make your own junk food, how to make your own isolis out of fresh fruit.
Yes.
How to make your own pizzas. I make the most amazing homemade pizza. I actually brought you some cookies here.
Okay, so these are your books here. So my first cookbook, that's for how old children?
That's from the age of 1.
OK, and you've got a weaning one at the end, the baby one?
Yes, that's my very first book. I lost my first child. It was really sad. She died at the age of 3 months. And my second child was a world's worst eater. And I wrote that book as my legacy to Natasha, never thinking that it would start a whole career.
Oh, bless you.
It sold millions of copies, and it's so popular.
Is it quite pivotal and important that you introduce kids to the weaning stage, or, you know, how important
It's very important, because the processed weaning food in pouches or jars, it's heated, so a lot of the vitamins aren't there anymore, so making your own is so easy and much cheaper.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:49. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, we're finally getting some sunshine. The UK is experiencing its hottest day of the year thus far, with temperatures rocketing to 31.2 degrees centigrade in Heathrow Airport. Too bad the planes aren't taking off. Now, I've had a fairly drizzly and grey July, but finally the great British public have been given a proper taste of summer. But will it last? Well, let's not worry about that. Let's enjoy the moment while it's here. Let's cross now to GB News East Midlands reporter, my good pal Will Hollis, who's in Skegness enjoying the sunshine. Will, Skeggy, many a child I spent there up to my knees in the mud. Tell us more.
Yes, well, 4 million people come to Lincolnshire's coastline to Skegness every single year, and with the hottest temperatures of the year so far at Heathrow, don't know why you need to be getting on a plane when you could just be coming to the coastline. Lots of people are coming to the coastline, and if you want a taste of the beach, if you want a taste of the seaside, you need 3 things. You need coming down to the beach, you need some chips, and you also need an ice cream. So I'm just going to interrupt you very quickly. Donna, how are the ice creams selling this day on the hottest day of the year?
Blooming excellent, thank you.
Blooming excellent, and this is a very big queue. What's the main selling ice cream? You've got the name, it's called Mr. Whippy.
I've got the price in my head, what I'm charging.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I've interrupted the queue. I'm so sorry, sir. Oh, OK. But there are lots of people down here, some of the biggest queues you've ever seen in Skegness. There's thousands of people. Come on, look at this gentleman. He's got himself an ice cream. That's fantastic, isn't it? Loads of people here along the beach. I don't think I've ever seen so many people coming down to the Skegness coastline. We've also got Sharon and Dave who've come all the way from Rugby. Why have you chosen Skegness when there are plenty of other coastlines that you could go to on the hottest day of the year?
Because we wanted a little break and we love the facilities we get in the area.
Yeah. What makes the beach and Skegness the perfect place for you? What is it that you're coming for? Amusements? Is it the beach? Is it for the sweets and the arcade?
That we come for the fish and chips, ice cream and the beach.
The beach, is that something you can attest to? Dave, what's the thing that really makes you happy when you're here at the coastline on the hottest day of the year?
The beach, really, and a couple of beers tonight.
A couple of beers tonight, though, not just yet. It's a little bit. 3 o'clock's too early. What time is beer o'clock?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, perfect time to start on that. What about a cup of tea right now, or do you prefer something a little bit colder?
We just had an ice cream, so I'll have a coffee on my way up there, and that'll be job done.
Do you know some people, they prefer to stay indoors on days like today? 31 degrees, why would you want to come out to the seaside?
It makes you feel good. Makes you feel good. Ice cream, sit and have a chat, watch people, the children playing on the beach. It's really, nice.
A lot of people will already be in Tenerife, they'd be somewhere else on holiday. Why is this a better place to be than one of these Spanish islands or Greek islands?
Well, we went to Spain last week and we needed to come to Skegness to sit on the beach and meet friends and have a good sit in the sun.
It's a much better place.
British weather.
Who wants to pay hundreds of pounds to go to a Spanish or Greek island when you've got this fantastic beach here? 31 degrees at Heathrow, but pretty hot here as well, Martin.
Well, all this beautiful stuff. Spent many a day there, as I did at Mablethorpe, Engel Mills. Great stuff. Get stuck in, mate. Be careful of those girls, those hats. They kiss me quick, because they don't kiss you quick, mate. It takes a bit longer, especially when they've been down the Wetherspoons. Now, we've had a few of your emails here. Your says loads and loads coming in on the topic of the riot in Leeds last night, and in particular the comments that Nigel Farage made about multiculturalism is displaying itself on our streets. Bill says this: of course, Nigel Farage is right. He's one of the few politicians who tells it as he sees it. I look forward to the day when he is finally in a position to do something about it. I feel that day is coming. Nikki, however, disagrees. She says, Nigel Farage, wash your mouth out with soap. Inflammatory language yet again from the ultra far right. Ian disagrees. He said Nigel is only stating the obvious yet again. And Jeffrey adds this: I believe Sir Keir Starmer is reaping what he has sown. High immigration will equal high unrest and riots. And Colin says this: if the police in Leeds can set up a widespread police cordon to contain arrests, how about doing the same thing at Dover? Fair point. Now we head back to Leeds to get the latest, of course, throughout the show after those shocking scenes from the disorder last night where a police vehicle was overturned and a bus was torched. What can we do about it? And we'll talk to a top copper and a politician. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. Now it's time for your glorious weather with Annie Shuttleworth.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Through the rest of today, we'll be feeling very hot into this evening as well, and very mild night to come for much of England and Wales. There is a change on the way as we head towards the weekend. Weather fronts will push in from the west, introducing considerably fresher air, but also a spell of wet weather. And that cloud and rain will push into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should stay dry. A bit of cloud spilling into western Wales, parts of the southwest as well. But across the south and east, a clear night to come. And here is where it will stay mild and humid overnight. Temperatures perhaps not dipping down much below 20 degrees. However, from the north and west, as I said, it will turn fresher through Saturday once this weather front clears through. That will clear through the Western Isles very first thing, but still some heavy rain to come across parts of the Highlands. Eastern areas of Scotland not seeing the rain till a little later on in the day on Saturday. Wet weather, though, spilling into Northern Ireland as well as North Wales through Saturday morning. Could see some quite heavy downpours pushing into parts of South Wales as well as Devon and Cornwall through Saturday morning as well. Further east, though, it will be a clear and bright start to the day on Saturday, but it will be feeling fairly humid through the day. The sunshine will turn hazier as well for many central and eastern areas of the UK as this cloud starts to thicken ahead of the band of heavy rain. So heavy pulses of rain to come for parts of Wales, the southwest, as well as some areas of Scotland as well. Temperatures cooler tomorrow compared to today, but still across the south and east, we could still reach the high 20s. Through Saturday evening, that rain will continue its journey eastwards, so some further outbreaks of heavy rain at risk for many areas of the UK, but it will turn cooler and much drier as we head into Sunday. So sunny spells on Sunday for many of us, temperatures much closer to average, but further wet weather to come next week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Jules Buckley. There's long queues in the West Midlands. The northbound M5 has a lane shut from Oldbury Junction 2 up towards West Brom at 1. The queue's back to Halesowen at 3, an obstruction on the road there. It's actually slow too on the southbound side. The M4 north of Bristol queuing both ways between the M32 and the M5. Eastbound coming off at 19 for the M32. A lane shut for a collision being recovered on the exit slip. Eastbound M4 slow west at 7. The exit slip road there's closed off. There's a breakdown. Big queues anti-clock for the Dartford Tunnel. The M25, the left-hand tunnel, is closed off. There's a breakdown. The queues back to just after Swanley at Junction 3. If you're flying in and out of the UK this afternoon, do check before you travel. Of course, we've seen disruption to flights due to a systems error. And for now, that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far. And you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have said Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very good afternoon to you on this glorious Friday afternoon. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster, all across the UK. On today's show, they're calling it the most serious IT outage the world has ever seen. As thousands of flights are grounded, it's wreaked havoc with the NHS and even prevented card payments at our local supermarkets. What caused it? Is it over? And will it happen again? We'll have experts on all of the latest. And last night, riots ripped through Leeds, fuelled by simmering cultural undercurrents. We'll be speaking to police experts and also Dame Andrea Jenkins, a Leeds politician until recently, to try and make sense of what could be a glimpse into a broken multicultural Britain. And after days of civil unrest in Coolog outside Dublin last night, the proposed site of an asylum seeker refuge was burned to the ground, with a protest kicking off at 6 p.m. tonight. We'll be live from the scene, speaking to locals and the councillor who was pepper sprayed by the police just earlier this week. And yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer pledged to smash the gangs, but the gangs, it doesn't seem, are listening. Today, at least 500 illegal immigrants are expected at Dover, taking the grim tally to over 2,000 arrivals since Sir Keir Starmer came into power just 2 weeks ago. Just like Rishi Sunak before him, it seems Sir Keir Starmer cannot stop the boats. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, the show, pleasure to have your company. Hundreds and hundreds of comments have come in already. What's really getting you going are those appalling scenes last night in Leeds. Buses being torched, cop cars being caved in by outraged locals. What's going on? Do we have a problem with two-tiered policing standing off of those protests? They'd have been straight in if that had been a football crowd or a St George's Day crowd, soft-soaping the locals. What's causing this? I'll speak to Dame Andrea Jenkins shortly, until recently a Conservative MP in the area, to get her opinion on where we've gone wrong politically and in terms of law and order. Get your views in the usual ways. gbnews.com/your say. The national headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 4. Your top story from the GB newsroom. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says it's working to fix the defect in an update for users of Microsoft's Windows software, which has sparked a global IT outage. Flights at many of the world's airports have been grounded since early this morning, with airlines unable to complete check-ins. Banks, supermarkets, GP clinics and even major TV and radio broadcasters are among the many who've been knocked offline. Those travelling by rail are also affected, with TransPennine Express, Thameslink and Southern among many who've reported disruption. CrowdStrike CEO says the issue is not related to a security incident or cyber attack, but Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says it shows the vulnerabilities of the digital age.
This incident shows us just how dependent we are on IT systems, and when something like this happens, how fast and how widespread the effects are. The reassuring thing in this case is that it's not a hostile act, it's not a security attack. The cause has been identified, and it's really important, because we're so reliant on these systems, that the fix is put in place as soon as possible.
Journalist Evan Gershkovich has been sentenced to 16 years behind bars after a Russian court found him guilty of espionage. The Wall Street Journal reporter has already been held in a Moscow prison for 16 months on charges of spying. Prosecutors say the 32-year-old was caught gathering secret information for the CIA, though no information to back up the allegations has been made public. Responding to the news of the sentence, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says journalism isn't a crime and called for his immediate release. In other news, a woman believed to be from Sudan drowned after an overcrowded migrant boat got into trouble in the English Channel overnight. 5 people were pulled from the water and a further 86 other rescued by a French patrol vessel at around 1 o'clock this morning. They were all taken to Calais. A spokesperson for Number 10 says the incident underlines the stark reality of the dangers of the crossings. In the US, Donald Trump says he'll bring back the American dream if he returns to the White House. It's as he took to the stage for the first time since his assassination attempt. Speaking at the Republican National Convention, the former president formally accepted the nomination to be the party's candidate in November's election. He also told supporters about last weekend's assassination attempt, saying he saw blood everywhere when he was shot at during a rally. Former wrestler Hulk Hogan, who also made a speech, called Mr. Trump a hero.
All you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you, brother?
Meanwhile, Barack Obama has reportedly told senior Democrats that he's concerned over Joe Biden's ability to win November's election. The former president is understood to have told colleagues that Mr. Biden's path to victory has greatly diminished. It comes as a report in the New York Times suggests President Biden has begun to accept that he may have to drop out of the race, though at least one person close to Mr. Biden insists he's not yet made up his mind. Police made several arrests during scenes of violent disorder in Leeds suburb overnight, with more expected in the coming days. Vehicles were set ablaze and a police car overturned, with residents warned to stay indoors as helicopters and a large police presence responded to the chaos. It's understood the riots were linked to local children being taken into care. Health alerts are in place across the country as the summer sun brings welcome relief for some. Experts are urging people to take precautions, with warnings in place in many parts of England until 11 o'clock tomorrow night. Today is now officially the hottest day of the year after temperatures hit 31.2 in Heathrow this afternoon. But England is far from the hottest part of Europe today, with temperatures in Madrid and Seville peaking at around 40 degrees. And if you've ever thought of managing the England squad, this could be your moment. The Football Association has posted an official job advert on its website for the role of head coach. The job description says the search is on for someone who will lead the men's team to win a major tournament and be consistently ranked as one of the top teams in the world. You'll have to get your application in quick, though. The Post says a number of candidates have already been identified to replace Gareth Southgate, but the FA is committed to an open process. Those are the GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Now let's start with that night of appalling violence in Leeds as police cars were overturned and public transport was set on fire, with residents warned to stay home in the suburb of Hare Hills. Joining me now is the former Conservative MP for Morley and Outwood in West Yorkshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins. Andrea, welcome to the show. A pleasure to see you. Appalling scenes on the streets of Hare Hills last night. Huge tensions. I want to ask you a few questions. First of all, the police response. It seemed to me that the police were very, very standoffish. For example, if that had been a St George's Day parade, if that had been football fans, they'd have absolutely been going in with their batons drawn. The police seemed to run away. What do you make of the police reaction?
Completely agree, Martin. It was plastic policemen on display last night, and it is lawless Leeds. And what upsets me the most is it shouldn't matter about people's religion or background. Everybody should be treated under the same under the rule of law. But that was not the case last night. And also, Martin, it was meant to have been started, apparently, because social services took a child away. Now, surely this demonstrates that they made the right decision, because I, for one, would not want a child being looked after with people who are capable of doing this.
And it was astonishing to see, Andrea, young children joining in this mob violence, throwing scooters, rocks, caving in vehicles, the police just standing off. And then it got whipped up, setting fire to a bus, and then wheelie bins getting thrown in, reminiscent of complete and utter anarchy. I want to ask you about something else Dame Andrea, if I could, and that is, you know the area. You've been a politician in that area for many years. It's not as simple as saying, oh, you know, the cultural melting pot of Britain. It's one big happy family. You know as well as I do, across Yorkshire, across many parts of Britain, there are tensions between the Roma community, the Asian community. It's not one big happy family as it's painted out by the liberal media, is it?
No, I mean, my seat is 5 miles away. It's the town of Morley and outwards. It's a lovely market town. So, but I was a Leeds MP, and you're so right. You know, the multiculturalism is not working, and you cannot force people to adapt to the British way of life, unfortunately. I mean, I believe in the old adage, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And the thing is, though, if people are left to get away with this, which they have been, because we've got a Labour West Yorkshire mayor, she's been elected for the second time, Martin. She's more focused on waving rainbow flags and hate crimes than serious crimes like this. If it was me, I would have got the army in there, I would have had the police in riot gear, I would have dragged them off the street to have stopped it escalating. It's appalling behaviour.
And Dame Andrea, you raise a fantastic point there. The political response to this has been strangely subdued. For example, if there are protests about asylum seeker centres in Merseyside or in Dublin, the police and the politicians are straight out to put the boot in, to condemn this unacceptable behaviour. This is not the Britain we live in. We all stand together. Not a peep today.
Completely agree. And also, I think an issue is as well that, look, Starmer's not, our new Prime Minister has not commented. Not all the Leeds MPs have commented on this and, you know, trying to relieve the tension. And also, I mean, thankfully, Pretty has come out speaking and showing her concerns, so has Robert Jenrick. But we're not the party of government, so what the heck are the party of government doing about it?
Dame Andrea, I want to ask you about one politician who did wade in, Nigel Farage, and he tweeted, the politics of the subcontinent are currently playing out on the streets of Leeds. Don't say I didn't warn you. Alex Sobel, the Labour MP for Leeds Central and Headingley, replied very quickly saying, this is a situation you know nothing about. You're inflaming a situation with misinformation. Isn't it funny how Nigel Farage calling out is inflaming the situation? The situation was already inflamed. The bus was literally in flames.
Completely, Martin. I mean, I've had former constituents contact me about this, actually. You can see I'm away on holiday, getting away from it all, and, you know, politics, but I got dragged in with constituents contacting me, actually. And if you look at the Morley Facebook groups, they're saying actually what Nigel Farage is saying, that, you know, this is multiculturalism that is not working, unfortunately. And also with the two-tier policing system. People are not racist for pointing out that everybody should be treated under the rule of law equally. And also, no crime should be too small to go unpunished, Martin. We've got to get control.
Absolutely. Now, Nigel Farage on the same topic, Dame Andrea, he said last night in an interview, 6 or 7 Conservative MPs would have kept their seats if they crossed over to reform. I have to ask you, Dame Andrea, could that have meant you?
No, but look, I'm not a traitor who just leaves my party just because I don't like the leader. They're trying to get me to go over in Theresa May's time. I'll go down fighting, and I don't regret not going over, Martin. You know, I'll forge out a new life, and who knows, I could be back. But the fact is, I'm a Conservative and I have Conservative values. Leaders come and go, but ultimately I'm a Conservative.
Well, I think a lot of people would like to see you back in politics. Dame Andrea Jenkins, thank you very much for taking time on your holiday to speak to us here on GB News from Crete. All the very best. Now, moving on, back to this breaking news story. Transport, banks, businesses and even broadcasters have been brought to a halt after a global tech meltdown. But the UK government say they're working at pace and firing up its national emergency response. Well, let's get now the latest from GB News' national reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, welcome to the show. They're calling it the biggest tech meltdown in history. 24 and a half years after we were threatened with the millennium bug, we finally got it. How did it happen, and how can we stop it happening again?
Well, as you say, the biggest tech meltdown for some time at least, and it's come on the biggest day of travel in the UK this year. More flights due to take off today than any other. That's what the Press Association is reporting now. And as that's going on, this IT outage and this meltdown has caused many airports to delay flights and not be able to carry out the normal boarding, booking and scanning processes, seeing many airports reverting back to pens and whiteboards and writing out manually boarding passes for customers. Now, while that's been going on in the last few minutes, you've also heard from the South Central Ambulance Service. They say that they are experiencing increased demand on their 999 and 111 services due to the global IT outage. I think we can't really say what's causing that additional demand on emergency services, but for the 111 services, it seems potential that could be linked to the fact that many GP practices across England are currently severely limited. We did hear this morning from NHS England that several GPs were unable to access key data, scans, blood tests, and further information on their patients. And back onto the travel point, we've also had some 1,400 flights cancelled globally, at least 40 of them in Britain, but most of them in the United States, where United, American and Delta Airlines have had their flights blocked. A significant day of disruption, and it's all come from a company called CrowdStrike putting out just 41 kilobytes of code in a software update overnight. This completely bricked several systems that use Windows, the Microsoft operating system. Mac and Linux users have not been affected by this. But this morning, CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz, he said on NBC's Today programme that the company was deeply sorry and that they had deployed a fix to sort out the situation. Meanwhile, Microsoft said that they had also dealt with the situation on their systems. But the question now is, how long will that deployed fix take to actually sort out these bricked and inaccessible systems that have caused so much disruption? For some people, it's as simple as switching it off and on again, or it's an automatic revert to the system working normally. But many other customers are still reporting problems. Those that use CrowdStrike, a cybersecurity tool for cloud services that you can access on an online network. Now, CrowdStrike say they're continuing to support those customers directly. They worked through the night. I imagine they'll be working all day and possibly into this weekend as well, as millions of customers seek to have their services restarted on this day of a global major IT outage.
Charlie Peters, excellent as ever. Thank you very much. And this has impacted my son. He spent an hour on a plane at Heathrow. He's going to go on his first school trip to Berlin. He'd been looking forward to it for months and months and months. Now he's at home, just messaged me saying, "Dad, can I have the PlayStation controller?" It sort of chokes you up, but that's a tiny story. Were you impacted by it? Get in touch, let me know. Now, lots more on that story at 5 o'clock, and there's plenty of coverage on our website, gbnews.com. You've helped to make it the fastest growing national news website in the country, so thank you very much. Now, brace yourselves, because there's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win £30,000 in the Great British Giveaway. It's our biggest cash prize of the year, and it's totally tax-free. Now, what would you do with all of that wonga? Well, here's how you could win the lot.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby, DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. latest. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, we'll head to Leeds to get the latest after those astonishing scenes from the disorder last night, as you can see on your screens, where a police vehicle was overturned and a bus was set on fire. Leeds was burning. What does that mean? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It was also announced that the Prince of Wales is set to star in a new two-part documentary on ITV covering his mission to try and eradicate homelessness.
Well, let's talk about this and much, much more with Angela Levin, royal biographer, who joins us in the studio. I'm glad to hear that this documentary's been made, Angela, because I worried that he made this big announcement about homelessness and I thought, goodness me, here is somebody who could maybe do something about this. And then it's all seemed to have gone quiet.
He's been very busy with it, actually. He's gone all over the country to see different areas and how they have been, and to try and change people's attitude to homelessness, that they're people who need help and want to get back into a normal life, and he's there to do it. I mean, we mustn't forget that in, I think it was 2009, he slept out in the street to see for himself what it was like. And he also helps people who are selling the magazine,
Big Issue, no?
Yes, The Big Issue. And he's worked all day long with the same man twice now. So I think he was actually just covering the basic about what it was like for him and how he can now help other people. He and Catherine are putting £3 million straight away into that, and it's going to
Where
be...
does that money come from?
Their own foundation, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not taking it from our tax or anybody else's, you know. And there will be a lot more. And he's been getting the money to do this. And I think it's he wants to do this so badly because of his mother. You know, she took them to see people who were homeless.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:23. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, several people have been arrested, just several, after a night of violence in Leeds. Police cars were overturned and public transport was set on fire, with residents being warned to stay home in the suburb of Hare Hills, where we head to now. And we join our reporter, Anna Riley, who is on the scene of last night's anarchy. Anna, the clean-up operation very much underway. What's the mood on the ground after a night of total chaos?
Yes, Martin, well, people are still understandably shocked and saddened about what happened, that large-scale riot that went on for 8 hours. It went on into midnight, as you say, with police cars being overturned and with a bus being set on fire. Behind us was where the bus was set on fire. We're just on Broughton Terrace in Hare Hills. You can see now that the majority of that clean-up effort has been done. The remains of that double-decker bus have now been taken away on a JCB, but you can still see the council working there, just sweeping up the rest of the road. It's really destroyed the tarmac, so we've still got a road sweeper going along. If you can see a little bit further as well behind this police cordon, you can see that people from this community are still gathered you know, nearly 24 hours on from when this first started, speaking to police, speaking to each other. We have heard as well that there's concern something might happen later on tonight, so the police are obviously understandably trying to speak to residents, trying to make sure that a further disruption like this doesn't happen again, and it has left people here feeling shocked and saddened. One man told me that he feels like Hare Hills is a no-go zone now. Another business owner I spoke to, he was concerned about his business and the impact that this would have on that, and another local resident I spoke to, he was out going to buy a pint of milk when it all unfolded last night, and he said he saw the flames, he saw the blaze, he saw officers with riot shields and helmets going in. Luckily, nobody was injured in this, but it certainly could have turned a lot worse, and police let out a statement earlier which they said they felt they had to retreat for when the incident unfolded at 5 o'clock yesterday, and that was when they went to aid social services in removing children from a home near here due to safeguarding concerns. And as we have further updates on this, Martin, we will bring them to you.
Thank you, Anna Riley, live there from the scene of last night's riot in Hare Hills. And joining me now in the studio to discuss this situation is the former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley, great friend of the show. Peter, 8 hours of rioting, over 1,000 rioters, several arrests and videos of coppers running away from the danger. Dame Andrea Jenkins, who until recently was a politician just a short way away from this seat, called it plastic policing. You're an old school, proper copper. How does this sort of policing make you feel when you see it?
Police officers running away from any situation is never a good look. But allow me, if I may, to rewind to what we think is the situation that sparked all of this disorder, with children being removed from a home by social workers and police officers. I have very close links to some people who work in social care, and believe you me, social workers do not remove children from a home because they want to. It is only ever the last resort because there are serious safeguarding issues. We are yet to find out what they exactly might be, but this wasn't done lightly, nor was the calling in of the police to support them in that. Moving on to the police, running away is never a good thing because, of course, the police so often say we run towards danger, we don't run away from it. From what I saw from various clips, the officers clearly were not equipped with any public order kit, NATO helmets, the crash helmets, as others might commonly call them, shields and the like. There seemed to be none of those to hand.
Why not? Because if that was at the Cenotaph, or if that was down the QPR, or if that was the St George's Day Parade, they'd be straight in wearing that sort of kit.
The Metropolitan Police has what is called the Commissioner's Reserve, which is van loads of Territorial Support Group officers, very fit, very well trained in public order, with shields and their kit in the van with them invariably. Clearly, the police here did not have that kind of capability. I strongly suspect there will be many, many police officers now, as we approach 24 hours after these events, parked up, out of sight, in vans, with all the public order kit ready to go in case it should blow up again. And I'm old enough to remember the 1981 riots at Brixton. I was there. Friday night was skirmishes and the kind of precursor to the real dreadful stuff that happened the following day. I hope there's not a replication of this, but I bet the police are very, very worried and very much ready.
Peter, how much do you think last night is the symptom of communities looking on, being soft-soaped for years, community relations, trying to build those bridges, but not actually putting the boot down when it's needed? You're seeing young children there caving in police cars. This is despicable behaviour. This is behaviour that shows, to me, a total and utter disregard for law and order. And not only that, but I think a belief that the police won't do anything about it.
Let's tell the truth, where senior police officers and many politicians won't. There are no-go areas in this country. They'll all deny it. Everybody in the establishment will say, no, 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 we can go anywhere. That's simply not the fact. There are many areas throughout this country where the police are simply afraid to do that job. It's been borne out numerous times by all the exploitation scandals that we've had of children in Rochdale and Rotherham and Oldham, and the list goes on and on and on. There are places where the police are very much afraid to tread.
And why? Why are they afraid to tread? Spell it out.
Senior police officers, it's appeasement. They don't want a situation like we saw last night, and they think if they police robustly, that might be the result of it. And let's face it, any police officer that has that kind of situation from last night on their CV is probably not going to climb that greasy pole of promotion that they're all so desperate to do.
You mentioned politics. We've had a change of government. This is Labour heartland. They're in a bit of a pickle, aren't they? Because the public are looking on at this, Peter Blexley, and saying, we have to put the boot down, we have to do something about this. And yet we have police commissioners relying on the votes of these communities. We have politicians relying on the votes. Is that another quandary? We have politicians frozen in the headlights.
If you ignore a community because you are afraid to go there, you simply will not have the sources to tell you what is going on. And if you disengage because you are afraid, is it little surprise if you do get called upon to go to that area, you will be met with hostility. It's no surprise whatsoever. Each and every community that claims to be a part of multicultural Britain should, by natural extension, welcome police in there to clamp down on lawlessness and crime. But that doesn't happen.
Peter, we've got like 30 seconds left. Do you think this is going to get worse before it gets better?
I sincerely hope not. But let's wait and see.
Not just in Leeds, I mean across Britain.
Oh, well, it's summer, and we all know that riots so often kick off during the hot, sweltery summer months. I sincerely hope they don't, but you know what? To a large extent, this nation is a tinderbox.
Peter Blexley, sobering words, but it's always a pleasure to have your company and your expertise in the studio. Former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley, thank you very much indeed. There's lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, and we'll be bringing you all the latest as channel crossings continue to soar, and we can expect many, many more as the warm weather continues into since Sir Keir Starmer was elected as Prime Minister. Can he stop the boats? Not yet. But first, it's your headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's 4:32. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your top story this hour. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says it's working to fix a defect in an update on its users' Microsoft Windows software, which has sparked a global IT outage. More than 3,000 flights at many of the world's airports have been grounded since early this morning, with airlines unable to complete check-ins. Banks, supermarkets and most GP clinics and even major TV and radio broadcasters are among the many who've been knocked offline. Those travelling by rail are also affected, with TransPennine Express, Thameslink and Southern among those who've reported disruption. CrowdStrike CEO says it's not related to a security incident or cyber attack, but warns it could take some time to fix. A woman believed to be from Sudan drowned after an overcrowded migrant boat got into trouble in the English Channel overnight. 5 people were pulled from the water and a further 86 others rescued by a French patrol vessel at around 1 o'clock this morning. They were all taken to Calais. A spokesperson for Number 10 says it underlines the stark reality of how dangerous the crossings are. The American journalist Evan Gershkovich has been sentenced to 16 years in jail after a Russian court found him guilty of espionage. Prosecutors say the 32-year-old was caught gathering secret information for the CIA, though no information to back up the allegations has been made public. President Biden says he's committed to bringing Evan home. Donald Trump pledged to bring back the American dream as he took to the stage last night to formally accept the Republican nomination for president. Speaking for the first time since he narrowly avoided an assassination attempt, the former president at first struck a unifying tone, promising to lead for all Americans. But he soon ventured off script, accusing his political opponents of cheating in what was the longest presidential acceptance speech since records began. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, if you want to get in touch, you know how to do it. You go to gbnews.com/your say. I've got to say, hundreds and hundreds of comments coming on today. The subject of those riots in Leeds, two-tier policing, the total failure to stop the boats, and we're about to go in our next hour to Dublin. There's expected to be another standoff between locals and the police there. Get in touch. I'll read your messages later in the show. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Through the rest of today, we'll be feeling very hot into this evening as well, and very mild night to come for much of England and Wales. There is a change on the way as we head towards the weekend. Weather fronts will push in from the west, introducing considerably fresher air, but also a spell of wet weather. And that cloud and rain will push into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should stay dry. A bit of cloud spilling into western Wales, parts of the southwest as well. But across the south and east, a clear night to come. And here is where it will stay mild and humid overnight. Temperatures perhaps not dipping down much below 20 degrees. However, from the north and west, as I said, it will turn fresher through Saturday once this weather front clears through. That will clear through the Western Isles very first thing, but still some heavy rain to come across parts of the Highlands. Eastern areas of Scotland not seeing the rain till a little later on in the day on Saturday. Wet weather, though, spilling into Northern Ireland as well as North Wales through Saturday morning. Could see some quite heavy downpours pushing into parts of South Wales as well as Devon and Cornwall through Saturday morning as well. Further east, though, it will be a clear and bright start to the day on Saturday, but it will be feeling fairly humid through the day. The sunshine will turn hazier as well for many central and eastern areas of the UK as this cloud starts to thicken ahead of the band of heavy rain. So heavy pulses of rain to come for parts of Wales, the southwest, as well as some areas of Scotland as well. Temperatures cooler tomorrow compared to today, but still across the south and east, we could still reach the high 20s. Through Saturday evening, that rain will continue its journey eastwards, so some further outbreaks of heavy rain at risk for many areas of the UK, but it will turn cooler and much drier as we head into Sunday. So sunny spells on Sunday for many of us, temperatures much closer to average, but further wet weather to come next week.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Jules Buckley. The eastbound M62 still struggling, junction 27 to 28, that's Gilderton to Tingley. Not helped by an earlier collision that's now cleared. The long queues too in Leicestershire for the southbound M1, junction 21A, heading down towards the Leicester Forest East services. There was a collision, now on the hard shoulder, but still seeing queues. Very slow for the M4 north of Bristol, queuing both ways between the M32 and the M5. On the eastbound exit slip to come off for junction 19, the M32. A lane shut for a multi-vehicle bump being recovered, that's queuing. And then queues for the M25 clockwise from 9 Leatherhead to the Cobham services. All the traffic being held to sort a collision out. Queuing to anti-clock to the Dartford tunnels for around about an hour. Not helped by an earlier breakdown. That's now clear though. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:38. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, due to channel crossings which have taken place today, it means up to 2,000 migrants have crossed the channel illegally since the Labour government came into power just 2 weeks ago. It will also bring the total number of migrants to make the journey so far this year to 15,500, which is an astonishing 13% higher than the numbers crossing at the same point this time last year. So Sir Keir Starmer may want to smash the gangs, but it seems that the gangs, well, they're simply not listening. I can speak now with the former Chief Immigration Officer of the UK Border Force, Kevin Saunders. Kevin, welcome to the show. Sir Keir Starmer wants to smash the gangs. The gangs aren't listening. Almost 500 have rolled in today, 2,000 since the Labour Party got into office. We saw another death in the Channel last night. Do you think that this government has any power at all of stopping the gangs? Bear in mind they've scrapped Rwanda on day one, and their plans of spending £84 million, beg your pardon, in Africa, of sharing intel with Europol. Kevin, is that approach going to work?
Probably not, no. And I mean, the 84 million, which we're giving to Africa, is over 3 years. So it's not even 84 million in one hit. And that is supposed to be going to areas that are in trouble so that it can be dealt with in those areas. But that it's not going to make any difference. It really is not. What is particularly interesting, Martin, is the fact that the EU seem to be looking at some sort of offshoring of asylum seekers, rather like Rwanda too, which the Italians seem to be leading. Now, that's going to be really interesting if the Europeans do that, because, of course, the Prime Minister is trying to get into bed with Europe at the moment.
And Kevin, in fact, we broke on this channel, on this show, in fact, a couple of days ago, the 27 European Union member states have their own problem with illegal immigration. 1.25 million was the problem size last year alone. So you're correct to say that the EU itself has a huge issue. Kevin, can I refer you to a specific incident? Again, we showed exclusively on this show yesterday, and I put the video on our screen now. And it was a search and rescue by a British vessel. You can see it there. Border Force Ranger went into French waters when a craft got into trouble. A dinghy was sinking. And unusually, in fact, the Home Office said overnight, Kevin, uniquely, the British vessel took these immigrants in distress back to France. You can see on your screens now that vessel is moving back into French waters. This is the first time that's happened. Now, this was put to the Prime Minister yesterday at Blenheim Palace, Kev, and is this new policy? Apparently, it's not new policy. It was an operational decision. But Kevin Saunders, could this be one of the ways out of this quandary? Use British vessels for search and rescue, but don't bring them back to Britain. Take them back to France.
Right. Well, I do know a little bit more now about what happened yesterday. And yes, Ranger was called in to assist with the search operation yesterday. And in fact, Ranger rescued 13 people very near the French coast. Now, I understand that they needed medical treatment, these 13 that Ranger rescued. And it was deemed that it was quicker to get them to Calais for treatment than all the way back to the UK to Dover and then up to either QMQE Hospital or Ashford Hospital. So an operational decision was taken with the French and the British to actually get them into Calais so they could get medical treatment much, much quicker. So, yes, it was an operational rather than political decision.
But do you think, Kevin Saunders, well, first of all, is there any appetite to make that a procedural, a policy-driven decision? So instead of saying it was an individual case where they needed medical attention and it was better served in a faster time at Calais, it should be a blanket decision that if any people coming from France are rescued by British vessels, they should be taken back to France. Should that happen? And more to the point, do you think that this government, Kevin Saunders, has the belly, has the stomach, the appetite to even go there?
Well, I mean, this was very close to the French coast where this happened. It wasn't in the middle of the Channel or on the edge of UK waters. This was deeply in French territory, and the French invited Ranger in to help them out. So it is only natural that they should go back to Calais. I think this might be a one-off rather than a regular thing. Unless, of course, something else, we have another tragedy close into the French coast, and we have a vessel on the sort of standby to go in and help.
Now, Kevin, if you're a people smuggler today, you'll be looking at your weather apps for the channel. It's a mill pond out there, Kev. It's more or less the perfect sailing conditions. You can see pictures on your screen now, exclusively sent to GB News. Boats streaming ashore, 500 today were expected to land. That's going to continue over the next few days at least. Kevin Saunders, can you see the numbers coming down anytime soon?
No. While we have this gorgeous weather, no, it's not. I mean, 300 yesterday, 500 today. If the weather holds over the weekend, same sort of numbers over the weekend. The numbers are going to go up. And to be fair, and I don't like being fair, but to be fair, the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister have both said the numbers are going to go up. It's a shame he didn't say that during the election, but there you go.
Kevin Saunders, we seem to have the same conversation many, many times, but I can't see any way out of this anytime soon. Will the public stay patient for long? After 2 weeks, Kevin Saunders, the figures are just going up and up and up. Kevin Saunders, always a delight to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, coming up, the Biden campaign are insisting the US president will remain at the top of the ticket in November, saying there is no plan for an alternative nominee. What does that mean for Donald Trump? He seems unstoppable. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm joined now by Stefan Kyriasis to give us the latest on everything theatre.
So, yeah, we're going in first with Starlight Express, which is back. It's not in the West End. It's out at Wembley at the Troubadour Theatre, which is a big, almost kind of warehouse space, which suits because, as you know, have you seen the show?
Starlight Express was my first ever musical. I must have been about 7 or 8 years old. I only saw it once, but I remember it being magical.
Well, this one, it's 1984 it started, and it's still running in Bochum in Germany in a huge arena. So basically what we've got, they've slightly tweaked it, and there's a little boy or little girl, depending on the cast, going to bed, obsessed with toy trains and dreaming of trains. Everybody is dressed up. To me, it looks like a cross between Tron and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I don't really think any of them look remotely like a train, but hey, the songs are Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's pop mixed with kind of cod 1950s rock and roll, some power ballads. The lyrics are politely like something out of an old speak and spell machine or something, you know. He's a steam train, they're out of date, he's being bullied by the diesel and the electric, and he falls for this carriage, the first-class carriage, new girl Pearl, and he wants to impress her, so he enters a race, and that's pretty much it. And when the races happen, all these barriers come up around where we're sitting, the lights are flashing, the music's thumping. It's utterly ridiculous, and I felt like a kind of teenager that was huffing sherbet dib-dabs off a giant block of sugar. It's so much fun, and the really crucial thing about it all is that somehow in the middle of all of that, I just felt myself getting into the story. And when Pearl and Rusty have their little duet, I was very moved, and there's this big starlight sequence, which is the inspiration, the magical starlight that he's seeking. It's beautiful.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said Stump. You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive?
Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:49. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, in the USA, the Biden campaign is insisting that President Joe Biden will remain at the top of the ticket in November. In a new leaked memo, it says that voters are still backing him, and the party has, quotes, no plan for an alternative nominee. Now, this is despite reports that members of his family have discussed what an exit might look like and rising concerns over his age amid recent public political gaffes. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Professor David Dunn, Professor in International Studies. Professor Dunn, welcome to the show. The polling looks terrible for Joe Biden. He's between 3 and 5 points behind Donald Trump in every poll, and that's before last night's performance by Donald Trump, very much back with a bang. The pressure is huge from the Obama camp, from George Clooney, from within the Democratic Party, from previously supportive media. So many people, Nancy Pelosi saying, Joe Biden, you have to step down for your own good, for the good of the party and for the good of the country. And yet this latest leaked memo says Joe Biden has simply no plans to stand down. What's your take?
It really is extraordinary. It seems that Biden and those around about him, both his close family, his sister, his wife, his son, and his close advisors, are the only ones who actually now seem to want to have him continue. The efforts of the Democratic Party are saying the Democratic voters, by a huge margin, want him to be replaced by a younger candidate. As you mentioned, a whole variety of people, the donors, crucially, have withheld funding for the Biden campaign. Abigail Disney, the heir to the Disney chain, is leading the campaign to actually try and block any more funds going towards Biden in the hope of forcing his hand. And what you've got is a series of measures ranking up the pressure. So first of all, they went to him privately and asked him to go. That didn't work. And so they leaked the fact that every senior member of the party has gone to him and asked him to go. If he doesn't go this weekend, what you can expect, I think, is that they will go public with their calls. And it's becoming more and more humiliating for him. And the difficulty with that is that it makes it more difficult and more embarrassing for him to go, even though the pressure on him is increasing. And it's partly that those around about him, their jobs are linked to being servants of Biden. If Harris was to take over, they would lose their jobs, and therefore they're hanging on for grim life.
And yet, Professor Dunn, the bitter irony is nobody's going to be more happy than Donald Trump if Joe Biden stays at the top of the ticket. You've got Hulk Hogan on stage. You've got Donald Trump, who can't be taken down by an assassin. You've got Joe Biden with a mild dose of COVID, who could be taken down by Nancy Pelosi. You couldn't get two different types of energy.
Exactly, and that contrast is partly why there is such a clamour across the piece to get rid of him. The images of him walking to and from Air Force One were painful. The guy has COVID and he's 81, but he looks incredibly frail. The contrast in energy could not be more marked, and that is really why that there is this increasing pressure on him in various forms, in various ways, hoping that the isolation of COVID allows him time to reflect, allows him to watch TV and catch up and just see how unpopular he is, and hopefully pushes him in the direction, as far as the Democratic Party are concerned, of actually exiting the race. But he is incredibly stubborn and recalcitrant in terms of actually his willingness to give up the position. His idea is, I've waited all my life to be president, I don't want to give it up now, even though the evidence suggests that not only his electoral fortunes, but also his reputation will go down in flames if he allows himself to continue at the top of the ticket.
Professor David Dunn, it's an astonishing situation, one no doubt we'll be keeping an eye on very, very closely until November the 5th, the greatest political show on earth. Of course, we'll be all over that here at GB News. Now, coming up, we will continue our discussions on Leeds after those utterly shocking and appalling scenes from the disorder there last night, where a police vehicle was overturned and a bus was torched, as you can see. Plus, we'll be live in Dublin, where another protest is due at the Asylum Seeker Centre that was burnt down there last night. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. Now it's time for your glorious weather with Annie Shuttleworth.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Through the rest of today, we'll be feeling very hot into this evening as well, and very mild night to come for much of England and Wales. There is a change on the way as we head towards the weekend. Weather fronts will push in from the west, introducing considerably fresher air, but also a spell of wet weather. And that cloud and rain will push into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should stay dry. A bit of cloud spilling into western Wales, parts of the southwest as well. But across the south and east, a clear night to come. And here is where it will stay mild and humid overnight. Temperatures perhaps not dipping down much below 20 degrees. However, from the north and west, as I said, it will turn fresher through Saturday once this weather front clears through. That will clear through the Western Isles very first thing, but still some heavy rain to come across parts of the Highlands. Eastern areas of Scotland not seeing the rain till a little later on in the day on Saturday. Wet weather, though, spilling into Northern Ireland as well as North Wales through Saturday morning. Could see some quite heavy downpours pushing into parts of South Wales as well as Devon and Cornwall through Saturday morning as well. Further east, though, it will be a clear and bright start to the day on Saturday, but it will be feeling fairly humid through the day. The sunshine will turn hazier as well for many central and eastern areas of the UK as this cloud starts to thicken ahead of the band of heavy rain. So heavy pulses of rain to come for parts of Wales, the southwest, as well as some areas of Scotland as well. Temperatures cooler tomorrow compared to today, but still across the south and east, we could still reach the high 20s. Through Saturday evening, that rain will continue its journey eastwards, so some further outbreaks of heavy rain at risk for many areas of the UK, but it will turn cooler and much drier as we head into Sunday. So sunny spells on Sunday for many of us, temperatures much closer to average, but further wet weather to come next week.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Jules Buckley. North Yorkshire queues for the A1M southbound around about half an hour. There's a lane shut, there's been a collision. It's just at the turn for Boroughbridge Junction 48 queuing back to Thirsk Junction 49. Eastbound M62 towards Tingley 28 still slow, follows an earlier collision. The one southbound for the M1's now on the hard shoulder, but still long queues away from Kirby Muxloe Junction 21A down towards the Leicester Forest East services. Two lanes shutting queues for a breakdown on the anti-clock M25, slow going before Dartmouth at 2. Big queues anti-clock 2 towards the Dartford tunnels. It's queuing back towards Swanley at 3. And if you're catching a flight in and out of the UK this afternoon, do check before you travel. UK airports have been affected by systems error, causing some delays worth checking. And that's your latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
A very good afternoon to you on this glorious Friday. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster, all across the UK. On today's show, global tech meltdown. They're calling it the most serious IT outage the world has ever seen. Thousands of flights grounded, havoc wreaked with the NHS, and even prevented us from paying for our food by cards at supermarkets. What caused it? Is it over? And can this chaos ever happen again? We'll speak to experts to get all the latest. And riots ripped through Leeds last night, fueled by simmering cultural undercurrents. We'll be speaking to police experts and politicians to try and make sense into what could be a glimpse of a broken Britain. And after days of civil unrest in Coolock, just outside Dublin, last night the proposed site of an asylum seeker refuge was burned to the ground, with the protest kicking off at 6 p.m. tonight. We'll be live speaking to locals and even a councillor who was pepper sprayed by the police just earlier this week. And that's all coming up in your next action-packed hour. Welcome to the show on this wonderful Friday afternoon. Something is happening in Britain. Simmering undercurrents we saw last night in Leeds, buses burning, police cars being caved in, the police simply running away. Nigel Farage saying this is evidence of multicultural Britain not working. Meanwhile, we'll cross to Dublin shortly. The scene there in Coolock of a asylum seeker centre burned to the ground yesterday, and there's a protest at 6 p.m. The locals there do not feel that the police, the politicians, anybody is listening to their concerns. Working class people simply having their opinions and their needs trampled upon by the institution. Even a councillor we'll speak to shortly was pepper sprayed by the police. An astonishing situation. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. Is this evidence of where Britain is heading? Does it look like a chilling sight? gbnews.com/you'll say that's the way to get in touch. Hundreds of emails so far. Please keep them coming. But first, it's your headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 5. Your top story from the GB newsroom. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says a fix has been deployed, but admits it could be some time before today's global outages are fully back online. More than 3,000 flights at many of the world's airports have been grounded since early this morning, with airlines unable to complete check-ins. Banks, supermarkets, most GP clinics and even major TV and radio broadcasters are among the many who've been knocked offline. Those travelling by rail are also affected, with TransPennine Express, Thameslink and Southern among those who reported disruption. CrowdStrike's CEO says it's not related to a security incident or cyber attack, but Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says it shows the vulnerabilities of the digital age.
What this incident shows is just how dependent we are on IT systems, and when something like this happens, how fast and how widespread the effects are. The reassuring thing in this case is that it's not a hostile act, it's not a security attack. The cause has been identified, and it's really important, because we're so reliant on these systems, that the fix is put in place as soon as possible.
Journalist Evan Gershkovich has been sentenced to 16 years behind bars after a Russian court found him guilty of espionage. The Wall Street Journal reporter has already been held in a Moscow prison for 16 months on charges of spying. Prosecutors say the 32-year-old was caught gathering secret information for the CIA, though no information to back up the allegations has been made public. President Biden has accused the Kremlin of hostage diplomacy and says he's committed to bringing Evan home. In other news, a woman believed to be from Sudan drowned after an overcrowded migrant boat got into trouble in the English Channel overnight. 5 people were pulled from the water and a further 86 others rescued by a French patrol vessel at around 1 o'clock this morning. They were all taken to Calais. A spokesperson for Number 10 says the incident underlines the stark reality of how dangerous the crossings are. Police made several arrests after violent disorder broke out in Leeds last night, with more expected in the coming days. Vehicles were set ablaze and a police car overturned late last night, with residents warned to stay indoors as helicopters and a large police presence responded to the chaos. It's understood the riots were linked to local children being taken into care. In the US, Donald Trump pledged to bring back the American dream as he took to the stage last night to formally accept the Republican nomination for president. Speaking at the Republican National Convention for the first time since he narrowly avoided an assassination attempt, the former president at first struck a unifying tone, promising to lead all Americans. But he soon ventured off his prepared script, accusing his political opponents of cheating in what was the longest presidential acceptance speech since records began. Former wrestler Hulk Hogan was also there. He called Mr. Trump a hero.
All you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you, brother?
Meanwhile, Barack Obama has reportedly told senior Democrats that he's concerned over Joe Biden's ability to win November's election. The former president is understood to have told colleagues that Mr. Biden's path to victory has greatly diminished. It comes as a report in the New York Times suggests President Biden has begun to accept that he may have to drop out of the race. Health alerts are in place across the country as the summer sun brings welcome relief for some. Experts are urging people to take precautions, with warnings in many places in England up until 11 o'clock tomorrow night. It's expected today could be the hottest day of the year, exceeding June's record of 30.5. But England is far from the hottest part of Europe today, with temperatures in Madrid and Seville expected to peak at around 40 degrees. And if you've ever thought of managing the England squad, this could be your moment. The Football Association has posted an official job advert on its website for the role of head coach. The search is on for someone who will lead the men's team to win a major tournament and be consistently ranked as one of the top teams in the world. You'll have to get your applications in quick, though. The Post says a number of candidates have already been identified to replace Gareth Southgate, but the FA is committed to an open process. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. And back to this breaking news story. Transport, banks, businesses and even broadcasters have been brought to a grinding halt after a global tech meltdown. But the UK government say they are working at pace and firing up its national emergency response. Well, let's now get the latest from GB News' national reporter, Charlie Peters. So, Charlie Peters, the millennium bug came 24 and a half years late. We've been ground to a halt. I guess the big question now is, this chaos this morning. Is there any sign of it coming to an end?
Well, it seems to be easing up on the transport side of things, Martin, with Edinburgh Airport saying that things are slowly returning to normal now. At Heathrow, we've heard that there are excessive delays, but the situation is now operating more normally after a busy schedule. However, as people are able to get back onto planes and trains, concerns are still alive and well and growing in the health sector. We've had some information just in the last few moments from the South Central Ambulance Service saying that they're facing increased demand due to a global IT shortage, and the South East Coast Ambulance Service has recently declared a business continuity incident because they don't have access to some of their external NHS services that they might rely on during their processes. We've heard this morning that some GPs can't access scans, they can't access blood tests and other vital information about patients. We've also heard from the London Ambulance Service. They've said that they're experiencing a huge increase in emergency calls. By 2 p.m. today, their chief executive said that they'd received more than 3,999 calls and also a further 3,111 calls to those services. That's a third more than they'd usually get in a full 20. So more concern about the situation for the health service, in particular those ambulance services. Now, what's caused all of this is just 41 kilobytes of code, a short bit of software that was put in by CrowdStrike overnight. CrowdStrike is a cybersecurity company that provides services to cloud technology. It's an $80 billion company. It's a significant service. It provides all sorts of information and support to services around the world. And that's why this incident, this small bit of code, has had such a drastic impact, because millions of people do rely on the services it provides. Microsoft has been the platform affected the most, its operating service, Windows, being bricked in many cases by this software bug. The chief executive, the CEO of the cybersecurity company CrowdStrike, saying that they are continuing to work to resolve this incident. And that comes after this morning when he said he was deeply sorry for this issue.
Charlie Peters, it's an astonishing state of affairs. This is what we were promised with the millennium bug. This is precisely the kind of terrorist incident that we may get a cyber attack from China or from Russia, and yet this seems to be entirely self-inflicted. I guess the big question now is, Charlie, who's responsible? Will CrowdStrike be held responsible for the hundreds of thousands of journeys that have spoiled, the holidays have been wasted, even the missed medical appointments? Will heads roll?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, CrowdStrike's statement on air live on NBC this morning, the CEO, you could always sense the pressure of lawyers in the room, no doubt very concerned not to say the wrong thing, to invite the attention of those who might be looking for some compensation after this global grinding to a halt of so many vital services. And they have issued more statements during the day. I'm just looking down a new statement that's come out in the last hour that they've reaffirmed that customers are fully protected despite the ongoing global IT outage. They say that this was not a security or cyber incident. Our customers remain fully protected. They say that the issue has been identified and a fix has been deployed, and they'll continue to provide updates to its community as and when they can. But Martin, just going back to your comment about us always expecting this to come from a cybersecurity attack, from a hostile state or non-state actor, this sort of drastic stoppage. Well, in London, in some ways, there's been some preparation for the level of disruption we're experiencing today, because less than 2 months ago, a Russia-based and Russia-aligned hacking group called Killin launched a targeted attack on a denial of service, on a ransomware attack, rather, on a group called Synovis, a third-party platform that provides pathology to the health service, particularly blood tests. 4 London hospitals were disrupted by that. They're still using pen and paper to deliver blood test results to patients. There's ongoing disruption from that. So there has been already a test of those contingency measures, and I have to say many patients severely let down by that process, and it's proven that the NHS really will struggle when it comes to dealing with this sort of cyber security disruption. But for this level of outage to come from an incident, a mistake, rather than a targeted attack, does show just how reliant we are on technology, and indeed those were the comments made by Pat McFadden, the Cabinet Minister, earlier today.
Charlie Peters, as ever, an excellent, succinct summary, and you're absolutely right. This is the kind of stuff that Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin or President Xi could only dream of. It seems to be an entirely self-inflicted disaster. Now, moving on, let's once again discuss that night of complete and utter bedlam in Leeds as police cars were overturned and public transport was set on fire, with residents warned to stay at home. As you can see on your screens there, Leeds was burning in the suburb of Hare Hills. And joining us now to discuss this is a former Scotland Yard detective responsible for identifying suspects after the 2011 London riots. It's Mike Neville. Mike, welcome to the show. Can I specifically ask you, Mike, about your immediate reaction as a former serving police officer to the police response last night? Mike Neville, 8 hours of rioting, 1,000 individuals involved in that rioting, police vehicles caved in to the point of being write-offs, buses set on fire. There have been several arrests, and we saw videos of police running away from danger. Mike, as somebody responsible for police actions, what's your take on last night's police response in Hare Hill?
Personally, Martin, I would rather stand and die rather than run away. I was a soldier first and then a police officer. And nothing worse for the public to see police officers running away because, of course, what do they do? What do you do if you're in fear? The police officers should be running towards danger, as we often see them do, not running away from it. And I think what we often see is this is an area which is it's detached from society. It is a heavily immigrant area. And I fear, again, that we see this two-tier policing in the sense if this was Leeds United fans protesting about the manager being sacked or something who set a bus on fire, the response would be rather more robust. So the initial response, I just don't think was good enough. You had the fire brigade hanging back again. We had when we had the Manchester Arena report, there's all sorts of comments about emergency services hanging back. And my view is once you put on that uniform, you put yourself at risk. That's the job. That's your duty, is it sense. So when we see the scenes you're seeing here of cars being smashed, it just sends out to people that they live in fear because the people who are supposed to protect them are not there.
Mike Neville, earlier on the show, we had Dame Andrea Jenkins, until recently a Conservative MP in a neighbouring constituency. She said she's been contacted by a raft of former constituents saying they feel that parts of Leeds are becoming no-go zones. We had Peter Blexley on the show earlier. He said the same thing now, and this is happening across many parts of Britain. And the common theme, Mike, that keeps coming up is this historical reluctance to police in areas of multicultural sensitivities. And you reap what you sow, right, Mike? We saw that with the grooming gang scandal. We're now seeing the police standing by and watching as these communities go into meltdown. Mike Neville, a serious question I want to ask you next. Do you think this is a taste of things to come? Could this get worse?
It could get worse. And what you don't have multiculturalism. You really have monoculturalism. You have little cultures which are just detached. And one of the ways you can prove this is to show how many 999 calls are made in an area. And I imagine in that area, very few 999 calls are ever made because the people police themselves. They don't involve anything to do with the British authorities. Things are dealt with themselves. And it is really bad at the moment that the police are not engaging with this. It isn't good enough. The police keep telling us they're recruiting different types of people and this and that, diversity schemes. They just need to recruit some good police officers. They stop recruiting ex-soldiers. They need to have officers who can respond where it's necessary in a robust manner. And when people are starting to set fire to buses and burn things down and putting people in real danger, it doesn't need to be talked about. It needs to be sorted out straight away.
Mike Neville, when you talk about communities policing themselves, there's another phrase for that, and it's called mob rule. We saw mob rule on the streets of Hare Hills last night. We saw the police running away from the mob. Mike, how do we fix this?
It's going to take a long time, Martin, because what you have is a whole clutch of senior officers who are of the same. There's no diversity of thought amongst them. They are convinced of their own righteousness. They went to the same universities, and they're convinced that having diversity schemes and whatever is the future. The fact that they don't detect any crime, they don't keep people safe. This really doesn't matter to them. And so what it needs is people imposing on the police who are going to do that. But I fear we had 14 years of a Conservative government who did nothing. I doubt the Labour Party are going to do anything because they rely on votes from this sort of area. And I fear for the country. And when I was a police officer, I always used to see myself as the protector of the little people. And the little people are the ones who can't fight back. They're the ones who live in fear. They're the ones in those houses there where there's flames all around, and all they want to do is live their life. And they're in fear because the police are not there, the fire brigade are not there, and it isn't good enough.
Mike Neville, sobering thoughts, chilling messaging, but I hope people in power are listening, because I think you're dead right. I think we've reached that point now where something must be done. It's not fair for ordinary taxpayers to watch this meltdown of the fabric of society. Mike Neville, thank you very much for your words. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on our show. Now, you get lots more of that story on our website. And thanks to you, GBNews.com is the fastest growing national news website in the country. It's got breaking news and all of the brilliant analysis you've come to expect from us here at GB News. Now, there's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win £30,000 in the Great British Giveaway. It's our biggest cash prize of the year. And what's more, it's totally tax-free. What would you do with all that extra cash? Well, here's how you could win the lot.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, coming up, we'll discuss the re-election of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, as she was comfortably re-elected by MEPs yesterday for another 5 more years of the top job. But what backroom deals did she have to do? And what will that mean for a closer deal with Britain? And what will that mean for you, the voter at home, who, if you recall, voted to leave the European Union? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should Prince Harry have accepted an award named after a US war hero at a glitzy ceremony last night? People begged him not to, but he did it anyway. It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Well, Prince Harry paid tribute to the eternal bond between mother and son as he appeared alongside his wife, Meghan Markle, at the glitzy ESPY Awards, dubbed the Sporting Oscars last night. The Duke accepted the Pat Tillman Award, named after a US war hero, for his Invictus Games work. But Harry's decision to accept the award was shrouded in controversy after more than 76,000 people signed a petition demanding he reverse his decision. Well, speaking last night, Harry paid tribute to Pat Tillman's mother, Mary. But that comes after Mary Tillman slammed his decision to give Prince Harry the gong, saying, "I am shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award. There are recipients that are far more fitting. These individuals do not have the money, resources, connections or privilege that Prince Harry has." So tonight I'm asking, should Harry have actually accepted the award? Let me know your thoughts. Go to gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GBNews and make sure you take part in our poll. But going head-to-head on this now, a former royal butler, Grant Harold, and the journalist and broadcaster, Lowry Turner. Thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. Lowry, I will start with you. I mean, the mother didn't want Harry to have it, but he did it anyway. What do you think?
I just think it's incredibly tone deaf. He seems to have an amazing ability to not read the room. It wasn't like this was a surprise because the opposition to him getting this award had been growing. So he had the chance to say, actually, I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to accept the award. But he didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said stump. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 5:25. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, yesterday, Ursula von der Leyen, my old sparring partner, won support from European Union lawmakers for another 5-year term as President of the European Commission, the EU's powerful executive body. Von der Leyen, who is part of the centre-right European People's Party, was first elected in 2019 and will serve for another 5 years following her promises of increased defence spending and, of course, yet more commitments to new green deals. Well, we can now speak with the head of policy at MCC Brussels, Jacob Reynolds. Jacob, welcome to the show. So it's the morning after the night before. Last time, von der Leyen scraped through with 9 votes as a margin. This time she got through with a significantly bigger margin. But the price of that, Jacob, was a lot of backroom deals, specifically with the Greens. Now, the Greens were hammered at the electoral polls in May, but they've got their way precisely because this is how Brussels works. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, it's exactly that. The election, if you can really even call it that, given that there was only one candidate, it's not much of an election, but the election of Ursula von der Leyen is a real slap in the face of European voters, because we saw at the recent European parliamentary elections that there was a big shift to more sovereigntist, patriotic, properly right-wing forces in the parliament, and yet the anointing of Queen Ursula, as they call her, just shows that they're insistent on producing more of the same. As you say, more of the green policies that have wrecked Europe's economy, more of the war on agriculture, more singling out of countries that don't toe the line, and further centralization of powers for the EU and for the executive there, and is very symptomatic of how the EU operates. As you say, there's backroom deals, an election with only one candidate, and even the people supposedly supporting von der Leyen don't even pretend that there's any other option. There's a real dearth of leadership at the heart of Europe, and so this just shows again how out of touch these EU elites are with the ordinary people of Europe who tried at the election to signal that they wanted something different.
And Jacob, an election with one person on the ticket. It's a bit like Kim Jong-un in a way, but I digress. All of those farmers across France, across the Netherlands, even outside Brussels, where they'll set fire to tyres over these new Greens deals that involve cheap agricultural products coming in from Argentina, from the continent, undercutting French farmers. They were furious about that, and yet they promised to change those policies. Totally done a U-turn here. Those policies will linger on. Jacob, I want to ask you what you think that could mean for the United Kingdom. We voted to leave, or so we felt, in 2019, and now Sir Keir Starmer seems to want to get closer. If we get closer to Europe, does that mean we have to adhere to these deals?
Well, yeah, the key plank of EU policy for a long time now has been that any countries they do deals with, they try and export all of their crazy regulations, especially on green regulations around agriculture. They're trying to export them all across the world. And so the price that the EU will definitely put forward to Keir Starmer, and we know people like him would be kind of minded to accept this, the price of getting any closer to Europe is further adherence to all of the crazy standards they have for green policies in agriculture, but also elsewhere, and the inability of countries to make decisions to support important areas of their economy and so on. So the danger here is not just for Europe, as you say, but also very much for the UK.
And Jacob, a huge issue, of course, is immigration. We've seen over 2,000 now arrive in small boats to our coast since Sir Keir Starmer was elected the Prime Minister. We announced on this show earlier this week, 1.25 million illegal immigrants came into the 27 EU member states last year alone. But von der Leyen made no mention of the biggest issue that affects the many, many voters in the continent. And Jacob, that makes many British voters fear that if the European Union can't control their own borders, they'll simply usher those people towards the coast. And so the EU's inability to control its border becomes Britain's problem.
Very much so. The kind of one of the key policies of von der Leyen's last term, which just about got over the line, was the what they call the immigration pact there, the migration pact, which effectively forces countries in Europe to take, in the EU, to take migrants in or be fined enormous fines by the EU. And you know that that's a model they'd very much like to support to export to the UK. And if that doesn't work, certainly I don't think they'll particularly care if France turns a blind eye to sending more migrants across the channel. So it's a real dangerous process, this, that the EU elite, epitomised by von der Leyen, have no plan for getting to grips with the migration crisis.
And there we have it, neatly and succinctly explained. Jacob Reynolds, we thought we voted to leave. Sir Keir Starmer wants a closer relationship. Will that relationship mean having to adhere to the same climate deals and possibly even some kind of immigration deal? Well, Sir Keir Starmer stated yesterday with Emmanuel Macron and the European leaders, 50 of them, at Blenheim Palace, that is precisely his plan. Jacob Reynolds, always a pleasure to have your company on the show. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, there's loads more still to come between now and 6 o'clock. And we're crossing soon over to Coolock in Ireland near Dublin, where an arson attack is believed to have been discovered amid anti-immigration protests in the area. I've joined a local journalist and also, astonishingly, a councillor who was pepper sprayed by police earlier this week. But first, your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's 5:31. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says a fix has been deployed, but admits it could be some time before today's global outages are fully back online. More than 3,000 flights at many of the world's airports have been grounded since early this morning, with airlines unable to complete check-ins. Banks, supermarkets, most GP clinics and even major TV and radio broadcasters are among the many who've been knocked offline. Those travelling by rail are also affected, with TransPennine Express, Thameslink and Southern among those who reported disruption. CrowdStrike CEO says it's not related to a security incident or cyber attack, but warns it could take some time to fix. A woman believed to be from Sudan drowned after an overcrowded migrant boat got into trouble in the English Channel overnight. 5 people were pulled from the water and a further 86 other people rescued after French patrol vessels rescued them around 1 o'clock this morning. They were all taken to Calais. A spokesperson for Number 10 says it's underlined the stark reality of how dangerous the crossings are. The American journalist Evan Gershkovich has been sentenced to 16 years in jail after a Russian court found him guilty of espionage. Prosecutors say the 32-year-old was caught gathering secret information for the CIA, though no information to back up the allegations has been made public. President Biden says he's committed to bringing Evan home. In the US, Donald Trump pledged to bring back the American dream as he took to the stage last night to formally accept the Republican nomination for president. Speaking for the first time since he narrowly avoided an assassination attempt, the former president at first struck a unifying tone, promising to lead for all Americans. But he soon ventured off script, accusing his political opponents of cheating in what was the longest presidential acceptance speech since records began. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2923 and €1.1867. The price of gold is £1,859 and 43 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's closed the day at 8,155 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sophia. Well, we've had absolutely hundreds of your says today, the most we've had all week on Leeds, on Nigel Farage, on two-tier policing, on the situation on the coast. But look, I want to read this one out because it's really tickled me. Lee says this: yes, Sir Keir Starmer will stop the boats by sending them cruise ships with Gary Lineker at the helm and David Tennant for their entertainment, probably dropping them off at their new 4-bedroom houses wherever they want with all the benefits included. Lee, I love it. You've got your tongue firmly jabbed in your cheek. Now, at 6 p.m. will be Jubes & Co, which today will be presented by the delectable Dawn Neeson, who joins us now. Dawn, what's on your menu?
That one was going, Mr. Daubney. Yeah, we've got a cracking, some would say a sizzling show on the hottest day of the year lined up for you. We are talking, when are dodgy jokes at work going too far, Mr. Daubney? I think we've made a few jokes to one another in the past as well. Yeah. But you're not offended, neither am I. But can you go too far by making dodgy jokes at work? Obviously, we're discussing the Leeds situation as well. And Just Stop Oil Extinction Rebellion. Should that key just be thrown away? All of that and loads more to come. Cracking show.
It's going to be a cracker. Dawn Neeson in for Jubes & Co straight after me. Great stuff. Now, if you want to get in touch, please keep doing so. It's been a bumper day, but there's still time to get your thoughts heard. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do it. I'll read out the best before the end of the show. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Through the rest of today, we'll be feeling very hot into this evening as well, and very mild night to come for much of England and Wales. There is a change on the way as we head towards the weekend. Weather fronts will push in from the west, introducing considerably fresher air, but also a spell of wet weather. And that cloud and rain will push into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should stay dry. A bit of cloud spilling into western Wales, parts of the southwest as well. But across the south and east, a clear night to come. And here is where it will stay mild and humid overnight. Temperatures perhaps not dipping down much below 20 degrees. However, from the north and west, as I said, it will turn fresher through Saturday once this weather front clears through. That will clear through the Western Isles very first thing, but still some heavy rain to come across parts of the Highlands. Eastern areas of Scotland not seeing the rain till a little later on in the day on Saturday. Wet weather, though, spilling into Northern Ireland as well as North Wales through Saturday morning. Could see some quite heavy downpours pushing into parts of South Wales as well as Devon and Cornwall through Saturday morning as well. Further east, though, it will be a clear and bright start to the day on Saturday, but it will be feeling fairly humid through the day. The sunshine will turn hazier as well for many central and eastern areas of the UK as this cloud starts to thicken ahead of the band of heavy rain. So heavy pulses of rain to come for parts of Wales, the southwest, as well as some areas of Scotland as well. Temperatures cooler tomorrow compared to today, but still across the south and east, we could still reach the high 20s. Through Saturday evening, that rain will continue its journey eastwards, so some further outbreaks of heavy rain at risk for many areas of the UK, but it will turn cooler and much drier as we head into Sunday. So sunny spells on Sunday for many of us, temperatures much closer to average, but further wet weather to come next week.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, my name is Johnny Ratner. There are long delays up in West Yorkshire on the M62 eastbound after traffic was momentarily held following a collision at the Tingley exit junction 28. On the M6 in Staffordshire, one lane still closed southbound from the Keele services down to junction 15 north of Stoke-on-Trent. A lorry broke down. All restrictions have now been lifted. And on the M1 in Leicestershire, really slow southbound from junction 21A and the A46 to the Leicester Forest East services following an earlier collision. On the M11, this is as you head out of London, the northbound entry slip is partly blocked to the North Circular where a car's broken down, and long queues on the Kent stretch of the M25 anti-clockwise. It's down to a single lane from 2 to 1B towards the Dartford tunnels after a lorry broke down. Disruption across UK airports because of that IT failure. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 5:39 now. The protests in Coolock in Dublin over a proposed site to house asylum seekers continues. And locals are also continuing to protest, and another one will be kicking off at 6 p.m. tonight in about 20 minutes' time. So ahead of this, let's cross now live to Coolock, and I'm joined now by the founder of the Liberal, Leo Sherlock, who I believe is also with Councillor Malachy Steenson. Let's start with you, Leo. So we saw dramatic scenes yesterday of the proposed site at the Crown Paints factory being burned down after a week of tumultuous policing pepper spray of locals, including a 78-year-old local. Tell us, what's tonight's protest about?
Hi, Martin. Great to see you. Yeah, basically what you said happened over the last couple of days has been raucous scenes here where locals have fought back against the contempt that the Irish government has for them and indeed everyone in Ireland. It just happens to be Coolock this week, but it could be anywhere next week. And what we've seen over the last 24 hours is a fire in the proposed migrant centre, but it hasn't stopped the centre from going ahead. It was only in the reception area, and locals here, decent concerned locals, are in the vicinity again, protesting tonight for their voice to be heard effectively. The Irish government, as I said, has complete and utter contempt for the Irish people at this stage. Their overlords in Europe are the only people that matter to them, and Coolock may well be a working class area, but 2 months ago, Newtown and County Wicklow, that was in quite an affluent area. So it just shows that it's completely irrelevant where these migrant centres are actually being placed. It's just the government are shoehorning them in, and they couldn't care less what the locals think. They don't listen to them, and they don't consult with them.
And Leo Sherlock, we've been speaking with locals all week. We've been covering the story extensively on GB News, and I know you've been signal boosting that for us. Thank you very much for that. We very much want to support these communities and give them a voice. One of the politicians, one of the local councillors who was elected to represent these communities, I believe is with you now, Malachy Steenson. Right. As I understand it, he was pepper sprayed while trying to interact with police this week. I wonder, on behalf of us, Leo, can you have a word with Malachy on behalf of us at GB News so our viewers can hear?
Of course, yeah. Malachy, GB News here in England have been very, very decent to the Irish cause. They've covered this extensively. And can you just give them a brief rundown as to what actually happened to you as an elected official in Ireland during the week here at the protests in Coolock?
Well, we were here at a protest on Monday night, 6 o'clock. We were preparing to speak, and there was a few running battles at that stage between the police force, the militarised public order unit, who were attempting to drag people off the streets. There was a bit of interaction between disillusioned young lads in the area, threw a few stones, a few fireworks, nothing that you would consider looking at Leeds last night, for instance, or Belfast at any time in the past 40 years, or indeed France, wouldn't even get on the scale of being a riot. We didn't get an opportunity to speak. A number of speakers lined up to speak. So myself and 3 other Dublin councillors, recently elected in the June elections, approached the police lines in order to try and de-escalate the problem. We made it quite clear that that's what we were doing, and because we were shouting at them, we need to de-escalate this. They raised the CS gas or pepper sprays, and you can hear the support from local people, or people passing by here by beeping at the horns. I mean, that's a continual beeping now as they pass the crowd. But they immediately sprayed us in the face with pepper spray. And
you were trying to de-escalate the situation at the time.
It was very clear from the audio that's out there that we were trying to de-escalate it, and they refused to discuss it even. They forced us back down the road then, and later on, the inspector said, go to the police station, bring your complaint. So some of the crowd actually heard that and did do that. They went to the police station around the corner. And of course, that caught the police off guard, and they were...
And gents, could I, Malachy, can I please ask you a question? Because Doogie Beattie, our reporter, has been at the site several times this week, was saying that what we really need is for the politicians, for the police to engage with the community. Malachy, you're an elected representative on the council. You are the voice of this community. Mary Lou MacDonald, the head of Sinn Féin, she said today we need to get beyond the politics of condemnation and get to a place of real engagement with communities. Malachy Steenson, has there been any such attempt to engage with you politically and to engage with the community so far?
No, and they demonise us. And remember, Mary Lou MacDonald made that statement after she'd already condemned people, and she's getting a kickback within her own voter base, both during the elections and now currently, because the vast bulk of her working class voter base are opposed to ordinary borders. That's why Sinn Féin are no longer now likely to be the lead party in the next government. But nobody has approached us. And today, the Coolock Says No grouping invited, for this protest tonight, invited not alone myself and other councillors who stand with the people here, but all of the elected representatives in this area and the Garda superintendent. Now, it remains to be seen whether any of them will turn up, but I don't suspect that they will. But when she talks about dialogue and communication, for this state, what that actually means is the government comes in and tells you, this is what's happening. There's no discussion about it. They've said to the people in Coolock, we're putting 1,000, mainly, well, they've said it'll be white, women and children and men. We know from experiences elsewhere that it will be simply young males, mainly coming from the UK, who will be put in there. And the people of Coolock have given their answer to the government and to any suggestion of dialogue and discussion, because there's really nothing to discuss.
Okay.
Because what happens here with discussion is that the NGOs get a pile of money to bring in diversity and inclusion.
I just want to add to that, Malachy, as well, that in relation to the consultation, the Irish government and indeed the so-called opposition have nothing but contempt. Mary Lou MacDonald doesn't care less about these people. She patronises them and condemns them every single day of the week as being thugs, as being layabouts, etc., etc. There is no political party at this time in Ireland, either in the government or opposition, that actually stands up for working for decent people. I was going to say working class, but it's irrelevant, because this happens in all different areas around the country. Other than the likes of Malachy and a few other independent people who've been elected recently, hopefully that movement will grow.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Thank you very, very much, both of you, for joining us. And that's Leo Sherlock, the founder of the Liberal, and Councillor Malachy Steenson there from Coolock outside Dublin. That protest, we hope, goes peacefully this evening. Now, would you be willing to go to face fines to take your kids on cheaper holidays? Some parents say it's a no-brainer, but what do you reckon? Well, I'll be joined by a teacher who thinks it's a bad idea. But look, guilty as charged. I've done it. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, time for the best part of the show, our Greatest Britain, where we share amazing people who do amazing things. And this week, that is Dr. Leo Cheng and the Reverend Hilary Cheng.
Well, Dr. Chen regularly serves as a volunteer surgeon aboard the Mercy ships in West Africa and has recently served his 17th mission aboard the ships. He volunteers with his wife, Reverend Hilary Cheng, a Methodist minister in the UK.
Thank you for joining us, and what a privilege. So just briefly explain, what are Mercy ships?
Well, Mercy ship provide world-class surgery on the ship, and the ship then sail to these poorest of the poor country because there's no infrastructure to get road or rail there. And we offer free surgery and also education, training of medical staff, and partner with the local or the host nation to build up their surgical and anaesthetic services.
So how long have you been travelling West Africa? You go on all these different ships, different ports, and you treat the needy and the vulnerable. How long have you both been doing this?
20 years.
20 years?
Just over 20 years.
And you take the time to do this out of your own holiday from work. Why do you do it?
Well, because I'm indebted to the education in this country with all the qualification I get. And NHS is great. I love the NHS because without NHS, we see cases that we see in the low-income country. And I want to make use of my hand to help those people who have no way of helping themselves, because the tumours, the deformities, not just a physical ailment, but it's being ostracised and die early, commit suicide because they've been ostracised by their family.
When you're on the ship, you are seeing the very worst that the country can offer. I find it a great privilege to work alongside these people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 10 to 6, the final furlong. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, parents have been taken to social media to urge others to pay the, quote, no-brainer fines for taking their kids on holiday during school term time. And here's one example.
Yeah, 240 quid. £240 for an all-inclusive holiday for 2 weeks in the sun. And we definitely save £240 then going into school holidays. So it's still a win-win to me. Yeah, I'll be paying the fine and whatever.
And that was a nurse from Lancashire who got a 240 quid fine but saved £3,000 on a holiday. Now, the fines are rising next month as the number of kids missing school is increasing, with parents citing lower prices outside of school holidays. Something I know a lot about, guilty as charged. Now, I'm joined by the head teacher at LVS Ascot, Christine Cunniff. Christine, always a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know you're going to tell me off because we've had this conversation before, but I did take my kids out of school. They have an exemplary attendance for the rest of the year. The holiday was half price. It was a no-brainer. I agree with the mum. Now, come on, tell me off. Put me on the naughty step.
No, I'm not going to tell you off, because I'm just jealous. Being a teacher, I've never been able to do it myself. So, I do feel a bit hard done by, but I'm not going to tell you off. And to be quite honest, I was actually laughing through that because it's a joke, isn't it? As soon as the schools break up, the prices go through the roof, and you can see why people, they pay the fine. It's like a license to go on holiday. So, it's wrong. The fines are not working. So another reason or system's got to be put in place to try and help.
And what's also really astonishing about this situation is that I applied for a passport last year. I applied to get my kids out of school via the system legally last year. The forms to apply for a holiday were longer and more confusing than applying for a passport. You have to fill out all the details, you have to print off the documents of the hotels, of the flights. They make it so hard to do. I suspect many parents just don't even bother. They just take the kids off and disappear.
Yeah, I think that is the case, but I think we're missing a couple of things here. One, that the travel agent shouldn't be allowed to be able to hike the prices like they do. But this has been going on for donkey's years, hasn't it? It's not a new thing. And the other thing is, I think parents need to understand that, if you miss school, if children miss school, they are missing out without a doubt, and there's statistics there to prove it. So I can sympathise with the parents totally. I get it. But, children need to be in school too.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Christine Cunniff, always a delight to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. Now, just before we end the show today, hundreds get in touch with Your Says, and the big topic has been, of course, on those riots in Leeds. Let's go through a few of them now. Andrew says this: the only answer is some draconian action, something, sadly, none of our spineless politicians will approve. Lizzie adds this: the silence is deafening from the authorities regarding the riots in Leeds. Wakey, wakey, Labour Party, there is something going on in Leeds that needs your attention. On the same topic, Christine adds this: the council cleaning up after the mob, you can see that on your screens there, went on the rampage. They should have left them to live amongst that mess. This is your mess. You should tidy it up. Why should the taxpayers pay for that cleanup? You're destroying your own communities. What on earth are you playing at? Ian adds this. We saw earlier, we had Anna Riley in Hare Hills. The clean-up job after a bus was completely gutted by fire. It melted the pavement. It's destroyed the road. Nothing works there anymore. That is going to cost council taxpayers a pretty penny to put it right. And on that topic, Ian says this: that bus company should simply stop servicing that bus route immediately. Why do these people deserve buses if all they're going to do is set fire to them? Gary adds this: immigration doesn't seem to be working, and this could only get worse because these communities don't seem to share our values or the love of our country. And we've seen now this completely breaking down. We had Peter Blexley in the studio earlier with the ominous words. He feels that this could only get worse. He feels his quote exactly was that Britain feels like a tinderbox. And certainly last night we saw that happen in Leeds, and we believe the crowds are building up. Let's hope and pray there is no more trouble. Now, I'm back tomorrow, early birds, if you fancy it. I'm on breakfast from 6 a.m. Join me 6 till 10. But first, have a fantastic evening. Now's your weather with Annie Shutworth. Have a great evening.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. Through the rest of today, we'll be feeling very hot into this evening as well, and very mild night to come for much of England and Wales. There is a change on the way as we head towards the weekend. Weather fronts will push in from the west, introducing considerably fresher air, but also a spell of wet weather. And that cloud and rain will push into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland through this evening. Elsewhere, it should stay dry. A bit of cloud spilling into western Wales, parts of the southwest as well. But across the south and east, a clear night to come. And here is where it will stay mild and humid overnight. Temperatures perhaps not dipping down much below 20 degrees. However, from the north and west, as I said, it will turn fresher through Saturday once this weather front clears through. That will clear through the Western Isles very first thing, but still some heavy rain to come across parts of the Highlands. Eastern areas of Scotland not seeing the rain till a little later on in the day on Saturday. Wet weather, though, spilling into Northern Ireland as well as North Wales through Saturday morning. Could see some quite heavy downpours pushing into parts of South Wales as well as Devon and Cornwall through Saturday morning as well. Further east, though, it will be a clear and bright start to the day on Saturday, but it will be feeling fairly humid through the day. The sunshine will turn hazier as well for many central and eastern areas of the UK as this cloud starts to thicken ahead of the band of heavy rain. So heavy pulses of rain to come for parts of Wales, the southwest, as well as some areas of Scotland as well. Temperatures cooler tomorrow compared to today, but still across the south and east, we could still reach the high 20s. 20s. Through Saturday evening, that rain will continue its journey eastwards, so some further outbreaks of heavy rain at risk for many areas of the UK, but it will turn cooler and much drier as we head into Sunday. So sunny spells on Sunday for many of us, temperatures much closer to average, but further wet weather to come next week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, my name is Johnny Ratner. The M1 in West Yorkshire is blocked northbound at junction 41 north of Wakefield, where a car has broken down. On the M6 in Staffordshire, the left lane shut northbound 16 to 17 north of Stoke-on-Trent after a lorry broke down. It's really slow on the M11 out of London. The entry slip road is partly blocked at the North Circular junction, where a lorry's broken down. Long queues back onto the A12 through Redbridge in Ilford and back onto the North Circular towards Stratford. The Kent stretch of the M25's down to a single lane anti-clockwise just south of the Dartford tunnels. The lorry is broken down. Wiltshire, the A361 is closed southbound along County Way at Trowbridge following an accident, and Great Northern trains are at a stand out of London from Alexandra Palace to Potters Bar. That's while emergency services deal with an incident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark Meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, it's 6 o'clock on a gorgeous sunny day. Hope you're having a wonderful time. It's Jubes & Co, but it's with me, Dawn Neeson. And we've got a sizzling show, I think I can say, lined up for you. Businesses and institutions around the world have been knocked offline after an IT outrage. In the UK, GP doctors' surgeries have said they are unable to access patient records or book appointments. Is it dangerous that the world is so reliant on so few tech companies? Spoiler, yes. Yesterday, we saw terrible scenes from Leeds where rioters burned a bus and tipped over a police car. We're asking why. What is behind all this? And plus, Just Stop Oil, they don't go away, do they? Just Stop Oil protesters have been given a prison sentence between 1 and 5 years. Harsh? Fair? Throw away the key? Let me know what you think to that one. And finally, should a tasteless joke at work get you in trouble, or is there still such a thing as workplace banter? That's all to come in the next hour. As I said, a sizzling show, but first, the news headlines with an equally sizzling Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. Good evening from the GB newsroom. It's just gone 6 o'clock. Your top story this hour. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says a fix has been deployed, but admits it could be some time before today's global outages are fully back online. More than 3,000 flights at many of the world's airports have been grounded since early this morning, with airlines unable to complete check-ins. Banks, supermarkets, most GP clinics and even major TV and radio broadcasters are among the many who've been knocked offline. Those travelling by rail are also affected, with TransPennine Express, Thameslink and Southern among those who've reported disruption. CrowdStrike CEO says it's not related to any security incident or cyber attack, but Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says it shows the vulnerabilities of the digital age.
This incident shows us just how dependent we are on IT systems, and when something like this happens, how fast and how widespread the effects are. The reassuring thing in this case is that it's not a hostile act, it's not a security attack. The cause has been identified, and it's really important, because we're so reliant on these systems, that the fix is put in place as soon as possible.
Journalist Evan Gershkovich has been sentenced to 16 years behind bars after a Russian court found him guilty of espionage. The Wall Street Journal reporter has already been held in a Moscow prison for 16 months on charges of spying. Prosecutors say the 32-year-old was caught gathering secret information for the CIA, though no information to back up the allegations has been made public. President Biden has accused the Kremlin of hostage diplomacy and says he's committed to bringing Evan home. In other news, a woman believed to be from Sudan has drowned after an overcrowded migrant boat got into trouble in the English Channel overnight. 5 people were pulled from the water and a further 86 others rescued by a French patrol vessel at around 1 o'clock this morning. They were all taken to Calais. A spokesperson for Number 10 says the incident underlines the stark reality of how dangerous the crossings are. Police made several arrests after violent disorder broke out in a Leeds suburb last night, with more expected in the coming days. Vehicles were set ablaze and a police car overturned late last night, with residents warned to stay indoors as helicopters and a large police presence responded to the chaos. It's understood the riots were linked to local children being taken into care. In the US, Donald Trump pledged to bring back the American dream as he took to the stage last night to formally accept the Republican nomination for president. Speaking at the Republican National Convention for the first time since he narrowly avoided an assassination attempt, the former president struck a unifying tone, promising to lead for all Americans. Former wrestler Hulk Hogan was also there. He called Mr. Trump a hero.
All you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you, brother?
Meanwhile, Barack Obama has reportedly told senior Democrats that he's concerned over Joe Biden's ability to win November's election. The former president is understood to have told colleagues that Mr. Biden's path to victory has greatly diminished. It comes as a report in the New York Times suggests President Biden has begun to accept that he may have to drop out of the race. Health alerts are in place across the country as the summer sun brings welcome relief for some. Experts are urging people to take precautions, with warnings in place in many parts of England until 11 o'clock tomorrow night. Today has been the hottest day of the year so far, with a temperature of 31.9 degrees recorded at St James's Park in central London. But England is far from the hottest part of Europe today, with temperatures in Madrid and Seville expected to peak at around 40 degrees. And a new report by a think tank is calling for Britain's old and neglected phone boxes to be removed. Create Street says there's little need for the old phone boxes, with their use having fallen by 99.5% since 2002. It found the majority of the boxes now attract vandalism and are poorly maintained, creating what's been called box blight across Britain's streets. Though the report is careful to draw a distinction between the old boxes and the classic red booths, many of which are listed. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Jubes & Co with me, Dawn Neeson, and we have got a sizzling show lined up for you on the hottest day of the year. Hope you're having a good one out there, but staying safe, obviously. Joining me until 7 is my wonderful panel tonight, Conservative Life peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, hello, and trade unionist and broadcaster Paul Embry. Hello, thank you both for joining me, dragging yourselves away from your sunbeds and your cold beers. And
we were talking about that earlier. Daniel's got Irish blood, and he doesn't tan well, do you? No, I wear a hat.
Oh, you've got your straw boat again.
I've got a Panama hat.
Panama hat.
Yes. I mean, he's just got a baseball hat with MAGA written on it. I mean, it's all,
and we're off.
It's a bit lower order, a bit cheap. Yeah.
I loathe Donald Trump.
Right, wait, we haven't started yet. But in any case, this show is not actually about them two or even me. It's about you. So get your views coming in at gbnews.com/your say. Now we're starting off with, I think, a really scary story. A global IT outrage swept across the world this morning, from hospitals to airports to banks. Everywhere has been affected. The problem has now been found by IT security firm CrowdStrike, and a fix has been deployed. But should so few companies have so much power across the world? Now, this terrified the life out of me, right? We've all seen this movie, right? Utter chaos, everything goes, planes fall out of the sky. I was actually genuinely worried. It's like, you know, TV stations stop working. Not this one, stay tuned to this one. Daniel, I mean, why are we so over-reliant on technology these days? Everything we do, I mean, it is getting dangerous, isn't it?
We're not over-reliant on technology as such. We are over-reliant on Microsoft. And this should be a turning point when we actually decide to rid the world of Bill Gates. That's what this should all be about.
You hold it him
because the other operating systems, as I understand it, according to Crowd thing, whatever they're called, according to these people, this has not affected OS operating systems for MacBooks or Linux or whatever. This is an attack on Microsoft. And why is Microsoft so dominant? And the answer is, I'm not talking about your personal computer on your desk, because that'll be fine. I'm talking about businesses with huge servers, huge networks, which is what we're really discussing here. Why is it? It's because they are so good at persuading every company in the world that only Microsoft is going to give them the support they want. And everyone crowds round what they think of as the safe standard, when there are other options available to them that they shun. And they should be using those options and developing further options, because there's nothing special about the Microsoft. I mean, there was a dodgy system that was set up in the first place. It used to be called DOS, Dirty Operating System, when it was first established, because it was botched altogether. And it's full of bugs. And this is going to carry on happening as long as the world is totally dependent on Microsoft. We need to rid the world of Bill Gates.
I mean, but whose fault is it, Paul, that we are so reliant on, whether it's Microsoft or another company, so reliant on one company? And the reason this the CrowdStrike system affected so many people, because it has so many blue-chip companies who subscribe to it.
I think this is clearly CrowdStrike's fault, isn't it, this? And it's insane that we are so reliant on such a small company in this particular case. And it's insane that a company of that size can cause global mayhem on the scale that they've done. I mean, was there no stress testing of this update that was rolled out?
The irony is...
There no backup systems?
This system is designed to stop this thing happening.
Well, these are the people who apparently ride to your rescue to prevent you from getting hacked, or to put it right when you've been hacked or when there's been an attempted hack. And actually, how ironic, in a terrible way, that this antivirus company has caused such global mayhem across the globe.
The thing that really worries me, gentlemen, is the fact that, you know, OK, this was a glitch, this was a mess-up, OK? Yep. But you don't need to nuke people these days, right? OK, all you need to do is get hold of one of these systems and then just turn it off, basically. You've got the whole world.
come back to my point. I'm really making a very serious point about this. Yes, of course, it was they were the one who made the mistake, and mistakes happened that shouldn't have happened. It's amazing that their statement still does not contain a word of apology to the world.
No, that's true.
Incidentally, it's absolutely scandalous. Yeah. But nonetheless, they made the mistake. It shouldn't have happened. There should have been processes that prevented that button from being pressed before they actually went ahead and pressed it. But nonetheless, its effect globally only exists because of the pervasive domination, the quasi-monopoly situation that Microsoft has established across the corporate computer network system globally.
But what do we do about it, Daniel?
Well, we do lots of things about monopolies. We have lots of powers here in Britain, the European Union, the United States. We have lots of powers to break up monopolies, and we do it with supermarkets if they merge and all sorts of things. So we need the government now to say we can't take this risk again of a mistake like this being spread throughout the corporate world because of total over-dependence on one particular operating system.
The thing is,
we need to take action to break it up, because the next mistake might come from a small company. We don't know where the next mistake will come from, but there probably will be another mistake. But it can't spread like this.
This wasn't a cyber attack, but it may as well have been. That's the thing. It may as well have been a cyber attack, and lives will be lost because of it. I mean, GP surgeries this afternoon are in meltdown.
60% of GP surgeries in England and Wales rely on one system.
And this is the thing, and Daniel's right in terms of monopolies. How have we allowed ourselves to get into a situation where companies, whether it's Microsoft, CrowdStrike, whoever's ultimately responsible, have such, and I know we live in an interconnected world and we're interdependent and the technological advance and all the rest of it, but how did we get into this situation where these companies, CrowdStrike, I think, is a relatively new company. It was set up about 10 years.
Never even heard of them before.
Set up about 10 years ago, I think, and suddenly sort of grew very rapidly. And they've brought a large part of the developed world to a halt. And that, I mean, that simply cannot happen. And whatever that happens, there has to be a contingency plan for the future. I think people have got to look at it, governments have got to get together and say, whatever it is in terms of regulation or splitting up these big, powerful companies, we've got to make sure that there's a system in place, a backup system in place, so if something goes wrong again like this, then it doesn't have anything like the impact.
Hopefully, the one thing this will have proved, Daniel, is that we learn lessons from it and we make sure that it doesn't happen again. We have backup systems in place. But there was a Cobra meeting this morning, wasn't there? But the Prime Minister didn't bother attending.
Well, I don't know. Well, I think there's a mystique about Cobra meetings, as if you have a Cobra meeting and then something's going to happen, you know. And if the Prime Minister doesn't turn up, nothing is going to happen. What we want, I don't know whether they have me. I am not assured. Whether it is not a political point, any political party, I am not assured or reassured if there's a crisis, and I know there's been a meeting in a particular meeting room. That in itself doesn't cheer me up. I'm interested in actions. And what I want to see here is the way to address this is to disperse the danger by making sure that when similar mistakes happen, they have an effect on, it'll have an effect on some part of the corporate world, but not the whole of the corporate world in the way that this does. So that you disperse the danger a little bit, you put the shock absorbers in. That's better than a sort of contingency and backup type of plan, which is often just a duplication of systems, which would also be affected. Why wouldn't they also be affected? You know, I know banks that have whole empty rooms full of servers and backup systems in case their systems go down. I understand that. But why wouldn't they be affected also? You need to spread the danger by breaking up the monopolies. And I want to see action from the government to do that.
Similarities here with the global financial crisis in 2008, where the banks were, you know, lending irresponsibly, there wasn't proper regulation in place, there wasn't proper oversight, and that had a huge impact globally. And we're still paying the price of that 16 years later in terms of the impact of austerity and so on.
One of the interesting
things... And this is, you know, a similar thing, so not necessarily long-term, but certainly in terms of the immediate...
One of the interesting things, I think, to come out of this is how our old-school systems, i.e. paying for things in cash, call me old-fashioned, and actually doing your job from your place of employment. Lots of IT experts saying today, like, working from home didn't help the situation because IT specialists couldn't get to an office and sort everybody's computers out at the same time because everybody is working remotely these days.
And it needs a manual fix on every computer, by all means.
That's what I mean. That's like a manual fix. You can't do it if everyone's working from home. So, you know, going back to the old school's ways, Daniel, is probably a good idea then.
Well, I had a cup of coffee at the House of Lords today, and I tried to pay for it in cash. I tried to pay for it in cash because of this crash.
Yeah.
bit worried about getting my debit card out, and they didn't have any change. So eventually, at the third attempt, it did go through on my debit card, I have to admit. But I did keep the receipt for a change because I'm worried, you know, it could come back, you could be on your statement, they could multiply it by 1,000 times and you wouldn't know. They're there on the statement, you see.
Footman or a valet to deal with.
It's ridiculous. We have no support at all in the House of Lords. We don't even have a secretary or anything. It is you do everything, everything.
Play the world's smallest violin for you, Baron Moylan of Kensington.
Everything yourself. You get no support at all.
I don't know how you manage it.
This is why an elected House of Lords would be a great idea, but very expensive. Because we'd all have to have staff then if we were elected like the MPs.
At least you were in the office. At least you went, and you might have just been having a cup of coffee or a drink, but at least you went in the office. And the fact that we're not working in our place of employment anymore was a huge problem today, wasn't it, Paul? Can we just get back to work now, people?
I don't think it's that straightforward. I think where it works for people to work from home, where it works for the organisation, the employer and the employee, I don't think it's really for anyone else, the law, the government, anyone else to intervene and say, actually, no, we're going to stop that arrangement. I do understand the concerns about working from home in terms of productivity and so on. And I think probably in the public sector, you do need oversight because ultimately, you know, they're public servants. But I think by and large, if you've got an organisation, particularly a commercial organisation, which says, look, we as the employer are happy for people to work from home, it works for those people, it's better in terms of work-life balance and so on, then I don't see really that it's anyone else's place to intervene on this. So I wouldn't want to see this used as a sort of general attack on people working from home.
But it's like so many places now just don't take cash. I mean, I'm a West Ham fan. I just found out that our club shop now is going cash-free.
I was at a football club recently and I went in the bar and tried to pay with cash, and there were lots and lots of people there. It was before a match and it was a championship team, so a top-level team. And we had a bite to eat as well with a friend, and they said they wouldn't take cash.
I would just hand it back at the end, just hand the pint back.
Well,
I'd just say, I'm sorry, if you don't want my cash, then I don't want your pint.
I'd already drunk it.
Yeah, but just give...
I could have just walked out.
Well, you could just give the empty glass back and say, well, I don't...
my old mate Baron Moylan.
I don't want it. I don't want it. Take it back.
Yeah, no.
And here's the plate, by the way. It was quite a decent meal. I'd have paid. I'm still willing to pay for it.
The problem we've got now is the junior's well and truly out of the bottle, isn't it, on this one? I mean, it's going to...
Yeah, what I find worse... I'll tell you what I really don't like is when you say, could I have a receipt for the credit card, and they say, oh yeah, I'll give us your email address.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, why on earth would I have to give you my email address for you to give me a receipt, which actually by law, because it's a VAT receipt usually, by law you're required to give me anyway. Why would I have to give you my email address?
Because you have to these days. Everything
How dare you? How dare you?
Can you think of a single
ask for my personal data?
But they do.
In order to give me something?
Yeah.
I know they do.
All the time, in every shop you go in. But it's a single part of your life now.
I lose my rag then.
It's what, sorry?
I do actually generally, very calmly, in a very lordly way...
I'm sure.
...lose my rag at that point.
Yes.
I say, well, I'd like you to write it on a piece of paper then.
Well, good for you.
Give me a written receipt on a piece of paper.
But there isn't a single...
I think for elderly people, this is not...
Yes.
That's like me.
Personally, Daniel. But I think for elderly people, it is a real problem, the cashless society.
It's a real problem for the unbanked. There are a lot of people who don't have banking facilities, and they're excluded as well.
But I think elderly people, even if they do have banking facilities, they're not necessarily tech-savvy. They're not.
They can waive their... It's not the tech. They can waive their credit card. It's the elderly people who are the ones out there with their gold American Express
Sometimes,
card.
for example, Daniel, when you go to car parks and you can't pay with cash and you have to download an app and you have to pay on the app and you have to do QR codes and stuff like that, that does involve being, savvy around the internet. And I think for a lot of elderly people, it's difficult. It's difficult. There was a story the other day about a lady who couldn't pay, it was on Twitter, a lady who couldn't pay her parking ticket, and she was going to her daughter's inquest, which was happening in 10 minutes' time, and she... Understandably, someone put it on Twitter, she was in a really bad state because she was going to miss the start of her daughter's inquest simply because she couldn't pay by cash. She was being asked to download an app and do all of the things that you have to do nowadays. And we do, I think, as we sort of go forward with technology, which is not a bad thing in itself, of course, you can't hold back the tide of technology. You've got to embrace it and harness it to your advantage. But you've also got to make sure that you don't leave vulnerable and elderly people behind.
Exactly.
And we are doing that, actually. I think there's a tendency for people younger people, 20s, 30s, 40s, very tech savvy. This is the only world that they know. To forget that actually people a couple of generations older simply don't have that experience with technology.
But we can do mental arithmetic.
OK, and lots of messages coming in on this as well. Tony, I'm with you on this one, Tony. Should this IT mess-up encourage people to use cash more? It will for me. My bank account is now my mattress. Tony, I know where you're coming from. And Paul, bit cheeky Paul, says there won't be a Cobra meeting tonight. Starmer's gone home, it being a Friday night, and the weather's nice, obviously. I think he might have been joking a bit about that. But anyway, we have to move on. Coming up, chaos took over Leeds last night. Shocking scenes, weren't they? With a bus being set alight and people told to stay inside their homes. What do you think caused this? That's our question coming up very soon. Don't go too far.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A new report suggests that Prince Harry is lonely in California and he's considering returning to Britain despite a seismic falling out with his father and his brother.
But the question we're asking this morning is whether Meghan would come with her Prince Charming or whether Harry would perhaps be more welcome here if he came solo.
Like Kinsey, we'll go to Kinsey Schofield live now in LA. Kinsey, we've got lots of time to talk about this and speculate this. We've got about 6 minutes or so to talk. But what's behind all of this? Where are these thoughts coming from?
They're coming from royal author Hugo Vickers, and I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Vickers, but he's written over 30 books about the British royal family. And he told The Sun that Prince Harry will ultimately return to the UK with his tail between his legs. He described the Duke of Sussex as angry and says Harry is genuinely petrified of losing his wife, Meghan Markle. When asked his predictions for where Harry and Meghan will be in the next 20 years, Vickers told The Sun, I think he'll come home, explaining, I think Harry will come home, and if he comes home, we must be very nice to him because he won't particularly want to. He's quite angry, suggesting that he would be coming home solo. Vickers also said that Prince Harry looks slightly petrified of Meghan Markle and that King Charles has left the door wide open for Harry's return if and when he does decide to come back.
I can only imagine the culture shock that Prince Harry has faced arriving there. This is a kid that has grown up in castles.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, this is Jubes & Co. with me, Dawn Neeson, tonight. Keeping me company until 7 o'clock is Conservative Life peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, who's reading complimentary messages out about himself.
And Paul, and you, Dawn.
Oh, right, OK, we're allowed then. And trade unionist and author Paul Embry. And we hope you're having a lovely Friday afternoon, the Friday evening, Friday tea time. Anyway, it's the Leeds story, I'm afraid. Horrific scenes overnight when a police car was flipped on its side and a bus set alight after unrest broke out in Leeds, as I said, on Thursday evening. Residents were advised to stay in their homes. There were horrible scenes. We've seen them before. It's not new. Remember the Tottenham riots from not so long ago in London, and Manchester has seen similar things as well. But what do we think caused so many people to act so violently in Leeds in this situation. I'll come to you first, Paul, on this one. I mean, they were horrible scenes, and people seem to be actually enjoying what they were doing as well.
That's the thing. It seemed to be gratuitous, and that's what concerns me slightly, that there was a lot of laughter and a lot of giggling and a lot of filming on smartphones, and there were even, I mean, you can see there's children involved. You know, I saw some footage with women involved as well. And we've had riots in the past. You mentioned some of them, Dawn. I mean, going back to the 1980s, for example, places like Toxteth was in flames, and Handsworth in Birmingham, which Daniel will know coming from that neck of the woods, and Brixton, of course. But the thing that strikes me is back then, even though, you know, rioting was wrong, at least people appeared to have a genuine kind of deeply held political grievance. So, for example, Toxteth, the whole thing was about unemployment and poverty and deprivation in Liverpool. In Brixton, it was about, you know, stop and search by the police and so on. In Handsworth, I think it was young black youth who were rioting about unemployment and whatever else. But you got the sense, whether you agreed with them or not, you got the sense that there was a genuine kind of grievance there and that they were reacting to that. I think that this particular riot, very similar to the riot that you mentioned in 2011, or the riots in 2011, because they spread around the country. Ostensibly, if you remember, that was about Mark Duggan being shot by the police.
And it ended up about looting a new pair of trainers. And
exactly, the gangster from Tottenham. And it spread, and it was clear that thousands of people joined these riots who had no opinion on the Mark Duggan affair at all, but did it entirely gratuitously. And that's my concern, that it seems to happen these days. Because people seem to be enjoying it and there's no real political grievance there. And I think that was the case last night.
The Hare Hills Green Party councillor, Motrin Ali, was on the scene trying to calm people down. But in an interview he gave, he blamed the system for neglecting the community in that area. I'm not quite sure what he means by the community, but lots of people are reading lots of things into it. So, I mean, Daniel, it's like, on one side you're saying, this is caused by poverty and that particular part of Leeds and that community being neglected. And on the other hand, you've got people like Nigel Farage saying that this is what you get when you when you import migrants and their problems into the UK. What do you make of that?
Well, I think Nigel's got this completely wrong. I'm afraid I think Paul's got it wrong as well. His normal incisive social commentary has failed him here. The fact is, this is the tragedy of Boris Johnson's failure on levelling up. So we came to power in 2019 on an agenda of doing something for areas. This is one of the poorest parts of Leeds. It has been for years and years and years. And then we were distracted from doing that by COVID. You got Brexit done, 2019 get an election, a couple of months later you're hit by COVID, and that takes out the rest of your term. You're followed by a government which doesn't understand levelling up, and now you've got a government that isn't interested in levelling up. It's actually gone and abolished it. So we've got these people who have been neglected, this guy is right, have been neglected a long time. Now, what sparked it? That's also quite interesting, as far as I can tell. And really, I'm commenting only on the basis of what's in the papers. There might be more details to come, and I might be shown wrong by what comes later. But it appears to be the case that social workers or agents acting on behalf of social workers go to a particular family in order to take children into custody, because presumably for good. I have no comment on whether we don't know about the anything about the individual case. But that's what they went to. There was some form of resistance that attracted the attention of the police. At least at that stage, it was all under control, so to speak. But it somehow then got out of hand because other people in the neighbourhood, maybe from the same community, maybe from different communities, started reacting and joining in. And suddenly it kicks off, and that's the spark. That appears to be the spark that sets this off.
But do you not accept that?
It's really interesting, just to say one thing about this. As far as I know, have there been any injuries in the course of any of this?
There doesn't appear to be.
And has there been?
We're aware of.
Has there been any looting? Well, what is the comparison that Paul is drawing here? Because this seems to me to be really quite different in character from that. The Mark Duggan thing was sparked by what was regarded as, in a sense, if you like, a political incident, which is the whole question of how the police treat black people. And which is fundamentally is a political thing rather than a social thing, if you like. This seems to me to have been sparked in a very different way. And I think we really need to look. And what we don't want, what really must hurt these people is these they're all represented now. The whole of Leeds is represented by Labour MPs, you know, who include Hilary Benn, son and brother of Lord Viscount Stansgate. Tremendously condescending metropolitan elite people who have absolutely no idea. Not one of them, I think, anticipated this because they don't know their own area. And they're the ones now telling people what the solutions
possibly
are.
Thousands of people there last night, and this is why I say it was gratuitous, is that, I mean, you're absolutely right in terms of the trigger for it was the alleged removal of the children. But, you know, I suspect that the vast majority of people who rioted last night probably didn't even know the family, or certainly didn't know the details.
Of course not. Riots draw crowds. Riots grow.
And this is the
riots
point. Just one second. So this is the point that I'm making. That for most people rioting last night, it was gratuitous, and there was not a deep-seated political grievance because, as I say, most of them would not have known the facts around the removal of the children. And in that respect, I think it probably was like 2011.
Yeah, they were just going out for a night in the park, really, and enjoying themselves. I mean, come on, Paul. Come on, Paul. There wasn't a deep-seated political grievance. There clearly, is. No, I'm quoting you there. Sorry, I beg your pardon. What I meant was you're saying there wasn't a deep-seated political grievance. Clearly, in circumstances like that, in places that have been ignored like that, there is, and you'd expect somebody to be articulating it. And it seems to be left to this guy.
That's not why. But come on,
Ali, to do that.
It was just what gentlemen.
That's not why. I don't think that's why they were writing.
Well, you haven't given an explanation of why they were.
I don't think the young men who went out, who you can see giggling and filming it on their smartphones.
Yeah, riots are fun.
The reason I'm doing this, and the reason I've joined this, and the reason I'm laughing as that police car is being upturned,
just quickly,
is because there's been underinvestment in our area, and there's too much unemployment. There's not enough opportunities.
Right.
That wasn't going through their minds.
Seeing as you just mentioned the police there, Paul, I just want to mention Tracy Brabin, Mayor of West Yorkshire, said such criminal behaviour will not be tolerated. My issue was it was very clearly tolerated. The police literally ran away from this situation. And as a football fan who goes to away matches, you look at a police officer in the wrong way and you are treated appallingly.
And they didn't,
why were the police not involved in this?
And they
this
didn't
is what
come
I don't
back,
understand.
They didn't come back until 1 a.m. The first disturbances occurred at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And the police withdrew.
Are we talking two-tier policing in this country?
Well, the police withdrew, and if you look at some of this footage, some of it is in broad daylight. This is obviously the things that's happening late afternoon, I would imagine. And then you see other footage which is taken clearly at night time. And what strikes me is, I mean, that police car is being attacked there. But what strikes me is in the footage, lots of footage I've seen, you don't actually see any police officers. No. You don't hear any sirens in the background. You don't hear any approaching police cars. And the riot police eventually apparently turned up at 1 o'clock. Now, I think that's a real problem, because I think when you've got a situation like that unfolding in one of our major cities, I think you need specially trained riot police who are able to be deployed at the drop of a hat and can get in there and deal with it quickly, sensibly, but quickly. And the fact that the police weren't on the scene for another few hours, and by all accounts from the testimonies, left local citizens to deal with it themselves, I think raises serious questions about the way that the incident was policed, and more widely about police.
Yeah, well, we saw similar. I mean, I'm sorry, we did see similar during the Black Lives Matter movement, where the police again shied away from tackling one area of the community, where if it was, like, say, football fans or Tommy Robinson, for example, they're straight in there. Do you think there's two-tier policing in this country, Daniel?
Well, of course, they could have had to go on a sloping roof. I mean, it might have been that they hadn't done the risk assessment.
Two words spoken in jest.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is the
and you know, it's very difficult policing now. You can't ask people to put themselves at risk.
I think there is that perception, actually. Yeah. I don't think necessarily there is that explicit two-tier policing. I know a lot of people do, but I think when you see right-wing patriotic supporters who I don't have much truck with, by the way, the likes of Tommy Robinson. I've got no time for him at all. But when you see people like him and his crowd demonstrating on Whitehall, and the police are in there with their batons pretty quickly. I mean, they're not backwards in coming forwards. And yet when it comes to, you know, the sort of thing that we saw last night, there tends to be a standoff. And I'm not suggesting that there is something going on beneath the surface there, but I think perception-wise, some people might look at that and say, well, why one? And there may be an explanation for it. I'd like to know what it is.
As a football fan who travels to away games, it does annoy me that I'm treated so appallingly as a middle-aged woman who's not going to cause any harm. I just want to read Sheila's message out. Sheila,
West Ham, though, Dawn, come on.
Yeah, all right, OK. Sheila says, there's always been poverty, but people don't always riot. Why is it that some people do and others don't? It's not about poverty or neglect. It's about some communities wanting their own rules. And Nick just quickly said, maybe if the residents of Hare Hills are happy to live in a bomb site, the council should have left it in this condition for a while, let the residents pay for the clean-up. Now, lots of innocent people were involved in that, and I'm sure it was terrifying because there weren't any police around, and that's my main issue with it. Why weren't the police there protecting the innocent people there? Right, OK, now we're running out of time again. We move on. Just Stop Oil protesters, they don't go away, do they? Have been given up to 5 years in prison. Is that too harsh or the right decision, or would you chuck away that key? Don't go too far.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Humid and cloudy through Saturday, but as we head into Sunday, it's looking mostly dry but considerably fresher than today. That's because weather fronts are moving in from the north and west, and behind that we've got much cooler air arriving through Saturday. Before then, though, a humid night to come for much of England and Wales, as well as some eastern areas of Scotland too. Quite a lot of cloud building in from the west, but across the eastern areas it should stay clear and dry through much of the night. And temperatures here not falling much below 17 or 18 degrees. Further north and west, though, slightly fresher. We've already got that fresher air arriving into the far north and west by tomorrow morning. So after a spell of rain overnight across the Western Isles, it will slowly start to brighten up through the day. The rain not arriving to eastern areas of Scotland till later on in the day, but a wet start to the day across Northern Ireland. Temperatures only around 15 degrees here first thing. North East England, a dry start to the day. Much of eastern and central areas of England will see some sunshine first thing, but that sunshine will turn hazier as the day goes on, and that's because this weather front will continue its journey eastwards through the day. Now, it does bring a risk of some very heavy downpours, particularly across western areas through the day. It's unlikely to arrive into the east until at least Saturday evening, so you should stay dry across eastern areas through much of Saturday, but it's still going to feel quite humid out there, and temperatures across East Anglia in particular could still reach the high 20s. By contrast, across western areas, we're down into the high teens, so a very different feel by the end of the day on Saturday, and that feel will continue into Sunday. Once the rain clears slowly away from the east, actually there's going to be quite a lot of brightness around on Sunday. It should stay dry for most of us, and temperatures will be much more comfortable, much closer to average. However, looking ahead to the start of next week, there's the return of some more unsettled weather with temperatures below average. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems in Lincolnshire, a few miles south of Grantham. A serious accident has closed the northbound carriageway of the A1 from Colsterworth up to Great Ponton. And in Northamptonshire, the A43 remains shut northbound just off Rockingham Road, north of Kettering, after a lorry spilled a load of fuel yesterday evening. It's really slow out of London. The M11 has the northbound entry slip partly blocked to the North Circular Junction where a car's broken down. Long queues back onto the A12 over the Ilford and Barking Flyburn onto the North Circular back through Stratford towards Lee. The M26 in Kent partly blocked eastbound at Rootham where a car and a lorry have collided. And the Kent stretch of the M25 is down to a single lane anti-clockwise for recovery work after a lorry broke down south of the Dartford tunnels. In Carmarthenshire, the A48 closed northwest of Cross Hands for accident investigation work. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hello, this is Jubes & Co. with me, Dawn Newsom. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday out there. Keeping me company until 7 o'clock is Conservative Life peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, still reading nice emails about himself, and trade unionist and author Paul Embry, who... Have you had any nice emails? You haven't even bothered looking, have you? No, you're rising above it.
He saves them up for later.
I'm not going near mine. Right, now, Just Stop Oil. Love talking about them, don't you? They have just stopped in its tracks, yay. 5 activists that brought part of the M25 to a standstill in 2022 have been jailed for 5 years. But is 5 years for a peaceful protest a bit harsh, or is the sentence completely justified? Or do you think maybe we should just chuck away the key? Daniel, I'm coming to you on this one.
Well, my starting point with anything like this is to say, when it comes to sentencing, the best person to decide is not me, but the judge.
Yes,
because they've actually... You start from the point of view that the judge has actually listened to all the evidence, and he's heard the case both sides, and he's spent the time on it, and he's sat there, and I haven't. And if this is the conclusion he's reached, this is likely to be a good starting point. It's not likely to be totally irrational. He did read out in court, I believe, a list of the sort of people who were disrupted by this. The families, the people who couldn't get to work, people who couldn't get to the hospital, the people who couldn't get, the people who couldn't spoilt deliveries of food and stuff like that.
Well,
so there was genuine harm caused by this.
Yes.
Now, you've got a right to peaceful protest. You can peacefully protest by writing a letter to your MP at one end of the spectrum. Causing harm to others and genuine loss to others at the other end of the spectrum is something you shouldn't be allowed to get away with. And remember, these people are fanatics. When I was a kid, you used to have sandwich board men going down the Oxford Street with boards saying the end of the world is nigh. I mean, they were nutters. These people are nutters like that. They literally believe the end of the world is nigh.
The judge described,
and they should not be allowed to cause harm to others in pursuit of their crazed beliefs. Simple as that.
And the judge did crazy. So
crazed. It's crazy. I do not think the end of the world is nigh. No. I mean, even if you believe that there is an effect on climate from human activity, there is no indication to think that the end of the world is nigh. And there isn't something we can manage here.
And the judge did compare the campaigners to fanatics, in particular Roger Hallam, who is the Extinction Rebellion founder, and did one infamously say that he would be more than happy to stop an ambulance with a dying person in it with one of his protests.
I think, Dawn, because their tactics have become more and more extreme as time has gone on, then sooner or later a judge somewhere was going to make an example of them and was going to hand down a really stiff sentence, which a lot of their supporters will say, well, this is absolutely outrageous. But is anyone seriously surprised by it? I mean, they were going to close the M25, cause massive disruption, cause an enormous amount of human misery as well. And at some point, I think the law has got to intervene and say, do you know what, slaps on the wrist are not working, and we're going to have to do something harder. I guess in their defence, the only thing I would say is when you compare it against other sentences for people who arguably do things more serious. I mean, on the way in, I read about a lorry driver causing a 7-car pile-up on the M25 when he was high on cocaine and left an elderly driver, 65-year-old, I think, or whatever he was, with life-threatening injuries, and has been spared jail. And you think, hold on a second, you can cause a multi-car pile-up through being high on cocaine while driving your lorry, and you don't go to jail. And we've all seen, there's a litany of cases where people have committed, in some cases, pretty horrific crimes, crimes against the person, against property, which have caused an awful lot of misery. But, get a slap on the wrist or get a suspended sentence and don't see the inside.
I think the sentence...
So on that, I don't have a huge amount of sympathy for these Extinction Rebellion and the Just Stop Oil people when they get these sort of sentences. However, I do think there needs to be some kind of equivalence for people who carry out as bad or arguably worse crimes, and there's often not.
And what do we think, quickly, gentlemen, of the various celebrities getting involved? We had our chef, Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, Chris Packham, and even the UN getting involved in this one, saying, no, we've got to overturn these sentences, they're way too harsh. What do you reckon to that?
Well, it's just clickbait platforms, isn't it? I mean, they want to get their names in front of the public because we keep forgetting how to pronounce Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall. So the more often he's on the telly for something, the better, it is.
And let's be honest,
they'll be streaking at football matches soon to draw attention.
Celebrities will trot out what they consider to be high-status opinions because they think it gives them social social kudos
A
amongst
little
their
bit of
audience.
virtue signalling, do you reckon?
They think it makes them look a lot more enlightened than the rest of us. The masses are a rabble.
Yeah.
They're not particularly educated. They live in backward, benighted places in the UK. And these people are far more civilised and liberal and enlightened.
Yeah, but it doesn't make their recipes any better.
No.
Harsh. Right, OK, we'll move on that one, shall we? Thank
You should tell your chef that.
God almighty, he used to, honestly.
I'll tell the butler to tell
Right, tell the butler to tell the chef. Right, OK, right, coming up. And now, banter at work, ironically. A female office worker has been awarded thousands of pounds in compensation after her boss made a string of sexist jokes and comments. But is it a case of a bad crime or just a bad sense of humour? Don't go too far. Loads more coming up on that one.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
Thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign. And thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War, restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved ones.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back. This is Jubes & Co with me, Dawn Neeson, on a Friday night. Hope you have a wonderful time out there. Keeping me company until 7 o'clock is Conservative life peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan. Lord Daniel Moylan just told me he doesn't like me not using the word Lord.
Oh, come on, Andy.
I think he was joking, though. And trade unionist and author Paul Embry. Now, the reason I'm having a bit of banter with the boys is because we're talking about office banter, workplace banter. Now, a female office worker had been awarded thousands of pounds in compensation after her boss made a string of misogynistic jokes and comments. However, the payout has now been overturned. Now, we're not going to talk too much about this case because there was more to this case than just banter. But I've used it as a peg to try and find out what that dividing line is between office banter and offending somebody. I mean, in this case, and this is a joke I do all the time, by the way, it's like, you know, when you drop something on the floor at work and someone says, "Why are you down there, love?" No, I do it all the time. I do it to men as well. Is that the kind of joke... Daniel's looking at me in that funny way he has.
Would you like to explain what the joke is?
No.
Lord Moylan, right
before the watershed.
Oh, so is that kind of thing offensive? Be careful. Is it offensive? Do you think that sort of...
All right, here's my portentous thoughts on this. I think the line is between banter and insult shifts according to what you're actually talking about. So if you're making comments, especially male to female comments, that might have a sexual innuendo, then the line is in one place and you have to be very, very sensitive. If you're making comments about the fact that somebody voted Brexit or they vote for the Conservative Party, then the line is in a totally different place, isn't it? Because you can get away with murder. You can say almost anything in most middle-class work environments about people who voted for Brexit or people who vote Tory or whatever it is, because, you know, they're on the condemned side of the line. So you can go as far as you like with banter. You can have people on the television, on comedy shows, I know this is a bit old example, but making comments about battery acid and being allowed to get away with that's banter. You know, pity it wasn't battery acid. That's banter. That's OK. That's perfectly all right. Well, I mean, but if you were to make that comment in a different environment about somebody's race, for example, then that would be totally verboten. So what's really interesting is why we draw these lines in different places, and why is this driver, these distinctions, I think, infuriate a lot of ordinary people because they feel that they're arbitrary distinctions and they don't reflect their sense of values.
And context is everything.
Exactly that.
And there has to be room for context.
And the relationship you have with the person who's saying that to you.
With the person, you know, we might work together, Dawn, and we know what our boundaries are, and I know I can get away with something with you, and likewise, which you may not feel that with another person. So I think in that respect, context is everything. But I think where it is clearly... Well, it's clearly over the top, or where it's clearly unwelcome and the person on the receiving end has made clear that it's unwelcome, then I think probably it shouldn't occur. And where there's a pattern of it as well, I think you probably do need to challenge it. And I said, look, I wouldn't want my wife and daughter, for example, I wouldn't want them to go into a workplace every day where there was a degree of banter, if it was, let's say, sexually explicit, where, as women, that was making them feel uncomfortable.
What is sexually explicit, though? I mean, is saying to someone you work with, "Oh, you look really lovely in that dress. It's summer. Everyone's sort of like wearing summer clothes."
No, I would have no. I've got no issue with that at all.
Right, OK.
I've got no issue with that at all. But you know, in terms of sexually.
But if someone said, "Oh, you've got nice legs," is that different?
I think if you're commenting on the person's physical appearance in that kind of focused way, then you are in danger potentially of crossing the line. But I come back to the point: context is everything. And you have to wait sometimes, I think, when you're working with somebody, for that relationship to develop and for you to understand. You build that rapport. You understand where the boundaries are. You understand where you can go and where you can't go. So that, for example, in terms of, you know, the thing that you said earlier in the intro.
You can say it, I won't be offended.
In the intro to the piece, I wouldn't dream of it. But well, we'll wait till we're off camera, Dawn. Or the thing about the legs, I would be very concerned about someone who felt that was fine on someone's first day, for example. You had no relationship with that person, but you thought, yeah, I'm going to speak about that woman's legs, or I'm going to make that sort of sexual innuendo, and the context isn't there because you don't know the individual. I think that woman, let's say, in that situation, has got every right to say, "I'm sorry, that's crossed the line. Those are my boundaries. Please don't do that."
Do you have any boundaries, Daniel? I mean, would you get upset if what's one thing someone could say to you that would really upset you?
I'd be thrilled if anyone noticed me. So I went to the state opening of Parliament this week, and I set off in morning dress on the tube in the morning because you couldn't drive or anything; it was all closed off. So there was I on the tube, on Circle Line, and I sat next to this young lady. I didn't even notice her. And as she got off the station before me, she said, "I just want to say, you look amazing." Oh. And I said, "Thank you." Yeah. And I loved it. So I would like more people on the tube when they see me to tell me I look amazing. That'd be great. That would cheer me up.
See, that's it, yeah, and they didn't say why you're down there, love.
It doesn't happen enough.
No, we are going to explain that one when we're off air. But I just have a little announcement to make. Tonight is the last time that we have Holly and Cal, our lovely producers, with us. So a toast to them, thank you very much, but don't go too far, because next up is Lee Anderson. In the meantime, have a lovely Friday evening and enjoy your weekend. Cheers. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Tom. Cheers to Holly.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Humid and cloudy through Saturday, but as we head into Sunday, it's looking mostly dry but considerably fresher than today. That's because weather fronts are moving in from the north and west, and behind that we've got much cooler air arriving through Saturday. Before then, though, a humid night to come for much of England and Wales, as well as some eastern areas of Scotland too. Quite a lot of cloud building in from the west, but across the eastern areas it should stay clear and dry through much of the night. And temperatures here not falling much below 17 or 18 degrees. Further north and west, though, slightly fresher. We've already got that fresher air arriving into the far north and west by tomorrow morning. So after a spell of rain overnight across the Western Isles, it will slowly start to brighten up through the day. The rain not arriving to eastern areas of Scotland till later on in the day, but a wet start to the day across Northern Ireland. Temperatures only around 15 degrees here first thing. North East England, a dry start to the day. Much of eastern and central areas of England will see some sunshine first thing, but that sunshine will turn hazier as the day goes on, and that's because this weather front will continue its journey eastwards through the day. Now, it does bring a risk of some very heavy downpours, particularly across western areas through the day. It's unlikely to arrive into the east until at least Saturday evening, so you should stay dry across eastern areas through much of Saturday, but it's still going to feel quite humid out there, and temperatures across East Anglia in particular could still reach the high 20s. By contrast, across western areas, we're down into the high teens, so a very different feel by the end of the day on Saturday, and that feel will continue into Sunday. Once the rain clears slowly away from the east, actually there's going to be quite a lot of brightness around on Sunday. It should stay dry for most of us, and temperatures will be much more comfortable, much closer to average. However, looking ahead to the start of next week, there's the return of some more unsettled weather with temperatures below average. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, my name is Johnny Ratner. Major problems continue in Lincolnshire, 2 or 3 miles south of Grantham. A serious accident has closed the northbound carriageway of the A1 from Colsterworth up to Great Ponton. Heading out of London, there are long delays. It's down to the fact on the M11, the northbound entry slip road is partly blocked at the North Circular Junction 4, where a lorry's broken down. That's causing long queues back onto the A12, back over the Ilford flyover and the Barking flyover, and back onto the A13, I'd say, on the North Circular. On the M3 in Hampshire, one lane shut southbound 10 to 11 towards Winchester after a car broke down. On the M20 in Kent, first of all, there's a lane shut London bound near Ashford 928 following a breakdown. In coastbound, the vehicle's overturned directly opposite, causing queues. And in East Sussex, the Hastings Road at Hastings is blocked by a multi-vehicle collision. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
and a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said storm.
You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm back in the pub tonight, got some